Fuck off, Paul.
Alright, everybody, hello and welcome to episode 16, I believe, of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
And I'm Deusdaecon, back again.
And before we get started, I'd like to let everyone know that the podcast is now on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. So go search us up on there and give us a rating if you feel inclined, because that will help it get more visibility.
Yeah.
And so with that out of the way, this month's subject is early drafts of the two Wolverine films. We have one of X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is credited to David Bean, the author for Visions from David Ayer. Yes, that David Ayer. And then we have the first draft of the Wolverine, which is written by Christopher McQuarrie, who's done collaborations with Bryan Singer in the past. And so, yeah, that's our subject matter. Now, the plots are fairly similar to the finished films, so we'll talk about those when we get to them. But as for the other X-Men movies, we'll start off with our thoughts on them. I really like the X-Men movie series for the most part, aside from those two in the middle that kind of suck.
Yeah, I think for the most part it's a good series with a few problems. I mean, none of the films are perfect.
No.
But for the most part, you've got X-Men 1, which is good, in my opinion.
It's a good setup.
Yeah, I mean, again, it has problems, but I won't get into that.
It's one of those movies where, you could tell Fox didn't quite have the faith in it.
Yeah, they didn't really quite know what they were gonna do.
Yeah, and they imposed a strict running time limit on it, so a few scenes got cut out.
Yeah, and it does feel... It feels very bare bones. It just like you said, it's a setup movie to set up the universe. Yeah. And it does it really well.
And it introduced us to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He's awesome in it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone else could play it, really.
No.
Because he's just got the perfect look, the perfect everything, really.
Yeah, and Patrick Stewart, perfect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even Ian McKellen.
Yeah, Ian McKellen's great. Halle Berry is tolerable in the first one.
Yeah, I think the main problem with her and Storm is that she kind of got a bit too big for her boots and was kind of demanding more lines for her.
Because I think she's tolerable in the first one, she's better in the second, and then the third one, it's just the stuff they do with her in that is just bad.
Yeah, it is. And I liked her in Days of Future Past, though.
Yeah, she was good. I keep forgetting she's in that. And actually, if you watch the movies as they go along, Storm's hair just gets worse and worse across the trilogy.
Yeah,
and then it gets better in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's all right in that one. I like Famke Janssen. I think James Marsden, considering they actually cut a little of his stuff out of the movie, he's all right.
Yeah, playing Cyclops, who has two mutant abilities. One is laser vision. The other is to suck out all the energy of a room.
Well, no, they're not lasers. They're
Yes, they're not lasers.
They're force beams.
They're concussive blasts. Yeah, which even movies seem to get wrong nowadays.
Yes, one we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first one, it's a good, solid piece, and I do like Rogue as well on that. And, and the villains are cool, but non-spectacular, like Toad, who's basically just there to give Ray Park some.
Yeah, showing off his Darth Maul skills.
Yeah, and Tyler Mane's all right.
It's kind of weird because, especially considering what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
The Tyler Mane version is quite. There's no other version like that. Every other version of Sabretooth is very much like the one in the script or the one in the movie. Because he barely has any lines in the film. I think he has literally 2 lines,
says,
maybe.
With them, him, something.
Yeah.
And he does say, and there is sort of the implication that he knows who Wolverine is when he takes the dog tags.
Yes.
But he's mainly there to just be kind of embarrassed by Magneto when he just leaves them in the cell.
Yeah, and he's just generic muscle.
Really. And they never do explain what happened to him.
No, he just... What does he get? He gets hit by lightning? Or is...
That Toad gets struck by lightning because that's the line that was left over from the Joss Whedon draft.
That's right.
And then
he's probably dead.
And then Sabretooth just gets dropped off Statue of Liberty, and they never actually confirmed whether he was dead or not. It only came up in the X-Men Last Stand video.
Huh. I mean, considering it's Sabretooth, he probably survived.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he doesn't even appear in the other movies, which is weird.
And Mystique is cool in the original trilogy, but I liked what they did with the character later a little more.
Well, what I found was kind of weird when I rewatched X-Men recently is that they've really toned down the Mystique makeup. Because Jennifer Lawrence just has a blue face, whereas in the original she's got like all these scales all over her face.
Well, it's because she was allergic to the makeup process in First Class.
Oh, is that why?
So they changed the process up.
Right, I did not know that. But but that was the most glaring difference I found with the character, because I liked the character's makeup in the first X-Men. So when she just kind of became a member of the Blue Man group, I didn't really like it.
Oh. Okay, but I mean, in terms of like the writing and the character stuff, they did some really interesting stuff with her.
Oh yeah. Everything else was much better
in First Class and Days of Future Past. Now I haven't seen Apocalypse, so I can't speak for that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
But yeah, so yeah, the first movie, pretty solid startup, and I like Wolverine being sort of the everyman. I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and I did like the fact that kind of the plot revolved around Rogue in a not too obvious way.
Yeah.
You know, because even Xavier is like, why does Magneto want Wolverine? And it's like, I don't want you, go away.
Yeah, I thought that was actually a pretty clever twist.
Yeah, that was good.
And yeah, that was cool. But yeah, it showed you that the movie, it could work as a movie, and people seem to kind of forget about the first X-Men in favor of the first Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
But I think it was a good start off for sort of the modern age of comic book films.
Yeah, and it kind of introduced the whole mythos as well, because obviously nowadays the X-Men thing is kind of impenetrable for newcomers.
Oh, definitely.
So I think it helped with newcomers, I think, which is a good thing.
Well, it doesn't help that they kept passing it off to different people. And like,
no.
Okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
No, they definitely didn't help themselves, but at least it was an in.
Yes,
into the mythos.
Yes. And so, yeah, that was pretty solid. I haven't seen the X-Men 1.5 version of it that's out there.
Oh, yeah, I've got that version. There's not much difference.
Yeah, I don't know really what the difference is. But then you get X2, which is sometimes subtitled X2 X-Men, which is stupid.
I don't know where that comes from.
It's because the evil mutants and the good mutants unite.
Not really.
It's kind of, and that's a much better movie.
I think it's definitely close to being fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually think it's really good. The stuff they do with Wolverine is good. Brian Cox is awesome.
Brian Cox as a striker is great.
And he's better than what we get.
Yes. It's kind of strange watching X2 now and then watching X-Men Origins, because it's like, they did it so much better and so much darker and less cheesy.
Yeah.
And interesting when they did it in X2, that you're like, what the fuck did they do?
Yeah, and just the whole sort of, and the flashbacks to Weapon X, much better than what we see.
Yeah, they were like really creepy.
Like,
it was like really creepy, and they got these weird masks on. They kind of look like Darth Vader.
Yeah, and it just said this, like, and it's like, it was really kind of brutal looking too, because you could see blood and stuff in it.
Yeah.
And just his reaction to the claws.
And I think as well, at that point, he didn't have bone claws.
Yeah, they hadn't decided on that in the movies
yet.
Well,
I say this because when Rogue says, do they hurt when they come out? And he says, every time. That, to me, implies that he didn't have claws. Because why would they... It doesn't make much sense. Yes, you could argue that the added metal damages the skin around where the claws would come out from. But I don't know. It just seems like they weren't going for the bone claws angle at that time.
But that's the thing in the comics where the claws have always just burst out of his hands without any explanation. But so they always would hurt his hands. But in the first X-Men movie, when you look at his X-rays, you can tell they're not bone claws.
No, they're not. They've definitely been placed there.
Which why?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know why.
And it's funny because if you read the Weapon X comic, the claws are a surprise.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we used up way more adamantium than we intended. What the hell? And then the claws pop out. They're like, holy shit.
Which doesn't really make much sense because they're really precisionally made. But never mind.
Yeah, whatever. And the whole line about that Stryker has at the end, where he says, "You were always an animal, Wolverine," which is just, I like the implication that Wolverine was kind of a bad guy before he lost his memory.
Yeah,
which
it kind
they fuck up.
Oh yeah, in Origins.
Yes.
But I did like the whole stuff with Stryker, and it's like, yeah, that was the line that I really loved from Brian Cox. He says, "I didn't make you into a monster or something. I just gave you claws."
Yeah, he says, "You were always an animal."
That's it. That was the line, and that was a perfect one because it just kind of encapsulated his whole character and why he's actually kind of better off now.
And it's a very Jason Bourne kind of thing, where in Bourne Identity he finds out he was not such a good person.
Yeah.
Beforehand, and then that sort of drove him insane a little bit. Yeah. And then the third movie kind of fucked that
up. Oh yeah.
And yeah, other things are great in that movie. Nightcrawler is amazing.
Oh yeah, is that Alan Cummings?
Yeah, it is Alan Cummings.
It is. It's kind of a strange casting, but it really works.
Yeah, he's really cool. And that opening sequence with him teleporting around.
Oh yeah, the music as well.
The White House, that's awesome.
That is a fantastic
scene. He completely disappears by the third movie.
Yeah, and then apparently he's in Apocalypse again.
Yeah, he's it's a younger version of him.
But we can't really talk about that because neither of us have seen it.
Yeah, no, neither of us have seen it. We could speculate. But yeah, X2, some really good stuff in there. I do like the ending. And I like how they sort of sprinkle in the Once and Future King references, which is pretty cool since I love that book. And I'm trying to think of the romantic subplot with Rogue and Iceman is not overplayed and it's not annoying.
No, it's not. It's very understated.
Which it gets later.
Yeah, in the third one it just gets stupid.
Yeah. And so let's just move on. Second movie, really good. Let's move on to the third one.
Yes, with Dark Phoenix.
Yes. Dark Phoenix, who... Well, I'm okay with it not being an alien, because that retcon was stupid anyways.
Yeah.
But it doesn't match up with what they were building up in the first two movies, because the implication is that Magneto's machine affected her in some way and unlocked other mutations.
Yeah. But, I mean, the problem with X3, if we're going to call it that, there was too much plot.
Yes.
You've got Magneto's uprising, you've got the mutant cure, you've got the Dark Phoenix. Too much shit. And just one of those plots could have fit into like 3 movies.
The thing is that the whole mutant cure thing is basically, that's tied into Magneto.
Yeah.
That and the Dark Phoenix do not mesh at all.
No, they're completely different plots that make no sense
because
together.
They basically, what the movie does is that it starts and stops. Like, the mutant cure thing will be going along, it stops, Phoenix stuff, which the Phoenix stuff is generally like 5 to 10 minutes long compared to the cure stuff. And then he gets Phoenix and manipulates her, and then she doesn't do anything.
No.
She does nothing in that movie. She kills Cyclops, she kills Professor X, then nothing until the end of the movie.
Yeah, where she decides to go Akira.
Yeah. She decides to go Tetsuo.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
That would have been funny if it went, Logan! She...
But yeah, and of course that kind of links into the Wolverine as well.
Yeah, because that movie, they made it, the Ultimate movie, they made it a sequel. And I'd argue that I can look back on that movie a little more fondly because I feel like the way the later movies referenced it make it feel like it means a little more.
Yeah.
And it actually had an effect on things, so it feels a little more important than it really is.
And of course you can't do without, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Yeah. But that was a movie where, like, they didn't want, like, Bryan Singer wanted to go one time to wait and do it. And so he got sick of, Fox's crap, and so he left and made the equally bad Superman Returns.
Yeah.
And so they decided, oh crap, our director left. Let's rush this movie out to make it compete against that movie. And so they had to write out Cyclops. They lost a director. Matthew Vaughn was supposed to direct it, and then he left, and they brought in Brett Ratner, and then the studio, and then the decision was made. They completely chopped up the script so that they could move the bridge scene to the end of the movie.
Right.
It was supposed to be halfway through.
To be honest, it does feel more like a climactic scene.
Yeah, and they did, and they lost Rebecca Romijn because she was busy doing other stuff.
Right.
Which, I do feel the Cyclops thing is kind of funny because James Marsden was busy playing a completely pointless character in Superman Returns.
Yeah.
See, yeah, that movie, it's a mess. And it calls itself The Last Stand and then sets itself up for a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue that it's not really referring to it as a in the filmic sense. So, I mean, one good thing I can say about The Last Stand is that it gave us Kelsey Grammer as Beast.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a great choice.
Although they cut his best part out of the movie.
Yeah.
Where he quotes the Henry V monologue.
But at least they gave him a cameo in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was really clever.
Good morning, Logan.
Yeah, that was really clever. And they didn't need to do that, but I liked the effort they put into that. And, I mean, you mentioned Famke Janssen, and I find her increasingly annoying as the series gets on.
I think she's fine in the first two. In Last Stand, the character sucks, so she has no recourse.
Yeah.
And I don't mind her in The Wolverine.
I found her really irritating in The Wolverine, actually. And I can't quite place my finger on why. Possibly because she was kind of channeling her character from House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, I see what you mean now.
You know? So it just grated on me.
I watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll go into it in more detail later, but basically what happened is that Fox noticed that the X-Men movies were getting increasingly more expensive to get all these actors back together, so they decided, let's do spin-offs.
Yeah.
Starting with X-Men Origins Wolverine, and then we'll do X-Men Origins random character name movies.
Wasn't it going to be Magneto?
Yeah, Magneto was the one they were definitely going to do after Wolverine.
Which they just kind of incorporated into First Class.
Yeah, which they canceled, and some of the ideas sort of cross-pollinated into First Class.
Which worked out for the best.
Yes, it did. But X-Men Origins Wolverine, we'll go into it in a little more detail later, because the draft we have is really close in some ways, but and really different in others. Yeah. But yeah, the summary of it is shit.
Yeah.
Just shit.
Well, it's not even notable shit. It's boring shit.
It has like one vaguely interesting action scene in it.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman's good in it. I'll say that. The cast is actually fairly decent all around.
Yeah. A lot of the cast is wasted though.
Yeah.
It's really massively wasted.
I actually really like Liev Schreiber in the movie, but he is wasted.
Yeah. Liev Schreiber's not bad. I think his version of Sabretooth isn't terrible. I like that version. It kind of makes sense and it works.
It doesn't match up versus X-Men.
No, it doesn't at all.
In any way at all. But they could have gotten it there through the writing, but they didn't.
Oh, yeah. But they just didn't bother. Should we talk about Deadpool?
Do we have to?
I think we have to. It's one of the more memorable moments.
He's Baraka mixed in with Darth Maul, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds at his worst.
And he's not even him the whole movie. He gets swapped out for Scott Adkins for the end fight.
Yeah, and then they kind of vaguely make him look like Ryan Reynolds with his mouth that's shut.
Yeah, vaguely.
Which Deadpool just made fun of, which is great. But yeah, it makes no sense. There's no reason for it. And I said this in the review. That's one of my favorite reviews, if I can tell your viewers.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites of yours too.
And I think I said this as well, is that nobody gives a shit about a Deadpool origin in a Wolverine origin film. You know, why put an extra origin in there that doesn't make any sense?
I mean, is it even an origin film when the origin is the first 5 minutes of the movie?
Yeah.
And it's just bullshit.
I guess when they say origin, they mean origin of the claws.
Yeah.
Really.
The adamantium.
Yeah, that's kind of where a lot of people think Wolverine comes from, which you can kind of see. You know, it's the origin of his amnesia stuff.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking shit.
When he became Logan-born.
Yeah.
The origin of the amnesia is terrible.
Yeah.
It's slightly better in the draft when it looked like it was going in a different direction, but
then they just did it anyway.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in more detail later.
Yeah, sorry.
But it's a movie which has about 15 different movies worth of plot crammed into it.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess. And there's a million different cameos.
You've also got Will.i.am playing Will.i.am.
Who's not terrible?
No, he's actually not one of the worst aspects of that film, which surprised the hell out of me.
You got Barry Burton in a fat suit.
In an absolutely ridiculous fat suit.
Get in my belly.
It was that. It was basically that. It's
hey,
just
Fat Fred. Yeah, you get that reference if you watch his review.
Yeah, that scene is ridiculous because he calls him fat to his face, and then he gets offended when he mishears the word Bob for blob.
How do you make that mistake even?
It's so random. It just makes no sense. Anyway,
we should leave that one for later, just so we can say what's different, what's the same, how's it better, how's it worse. And then after that, it was like to me at least, it seemed like it was vague as to whether they were even going to make any more X-Men movies. Because there was definitely talk of X-Men Origins Magneto, and the script was written, which I have, but I haven't read. Future episode spoilers. and David S. Goyer was supposed to direct it because he was riding high off of his association to the Dark Knight at the time.
Yes.
But I guess and I find it interesting because Origins made a shitload of money.
Yeah, but I always say that profit does not make success.
Yeah, but usually, like, the producers are like, we made a shitload of money, let's just keep doing this because it makes money.
Yeah, it is kind of a weird moment when they kind of realize that maybe they actually, thought maybe we should give these characters some dignity.
Because I guess it seems like the producers, they actually did look at, like, the critical response to it.
Yeah.
And response. And they went, we really did fuck up. And they also didn't want to make that movie, if you read up on it.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to do, for the Wolverine spinoff, they wanted to do the Japan story. But Tom Rothman stepped in and said, no, guys, you gotta do a prequel.
Ugh.
And there were rewrites to the point where they were getting new pages the night before shooting.
Jeez.
So I feel kind of bad for the director.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, he must have had an impossible job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him too much, that on top of the fact that he's not really an action director anyways.
No. I mean, who was the director?
Gavin Hood, whom before that he did some dramas.
Yeah, he's not
he got a best foreign film award.
So nothing in the way that would suggest an action movie.
No, and later on he did Ender's Game.
Ooh, okay.
Which I thought was a perfectly decent version of the book. It wasn't the great version that they should have made, but it was decent.
Honestly, I'm one of the people who boycotted the thing anyway. So,
but it was. But yeah, I don't think he's really done much since. He did a lot of relatively acclaimed work when he was working in South Africa. But then I think X-Men Origins just kind of stained his career in Hollywood,
which is understandable.
But yeah, so no one really wanted to make that movie, so I guess that's why they sort of shifted direction and did First Class instead of Origins Magneto, which First Class is a weird film because on one hand, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, every time I watch it, I notice just how cheap it is.
Yeah, it really does suffer from the budget.
Yeah.
And it might not even be the budget, it's just something to do with the art direction. I don't know.
It could be the art direction. I think it was budget art direction and the fact that they rushed it through in like a year.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they shot it like less than a year before it came out. But I mean, I was skeptical of it because it's like the images they were showing didn't look good. The posters were crap.
No,
who the hell are these young guys replacing?
Yeah,
Stewart and Ian McKellen. Then I watched it and I was like, holy crap! This movie it's a Sean Connery Bond film.
Yeah,
with Magneto as James Bond and Kevin Bacon as Blofeld. This is awesome.
Well, I still say, like will.i.am, it's Kevin Bacon as Kevin Bacon. Because I can't see anything else. But that's more my failing. But yeah, First Class, I think, is... I mean, ironically, if I can be a bit poetic, it's kind of a mutant in itself.
Yes.
Because it shouldn't be a success.
No, it shouldn't.
But it's fantastic, and it works out brilliantly. Mainly because I think people underestimated it.
Yeah.
And people thought, we'll go see it. It's not going to be anything special. We're just going to get another Origins. And then they thought, holy shit, Magneto's psychically killing people.
Yeah.
And, it's really cool.
It has to be one of the best villain deaths in any superhero movie with the coin through the head.
Yeah. And, I mean, just the whole scene of him in the bar with the Germans is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And that's down to Michael Fassbender as just playing that character beautifully.
Yeah, I should say I had no clue who he was before I saw that.
Yeah.
And then years later I put on 300 again and I'm like, oh, shit, that's Michael Fassbender. But yeah, he was awesome in that to the point where I'm like, I might like him a little more than Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against Ian McKellen. Evil Gandalf is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think the point is that young Magneto and old Magneto are very different characters anyway, so it works.
Yes, and you get to see how he becomes the man he is, and it makes sense.
Yeah. And you can totally see the same character traits in both versions. It's just that I think the Fassbender version is a bit more megalomaniacal.
Yes.
In his dealings, he sees these robots, and instead of let's just destroy these, no, these are going to work for me.
Yep.
And I'm going to make a big show of it. So it's he's got all this grandiose ideas above his station.
I really liked James McAvoy as Professor X that I was not expecting to.
Yeah, again, that worked out really well.
Yeah, and he gets even better in Days of Future Past.
In Days of Future Past, I like the fact that he's not this idealistic, hopeful leader. He's actually a guy who just said "fuck it" to the world. And that made the character so much more relatable and much more human. Because every other time he's just been this benevolent leader. So he's just been, basically like a little wheelchair-bound Buddha, so handing out wisdom.
What do they call you? Wheels?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that line.
But what I like about him in First Class is that he's this very strong idealist who makes a few very key mistakes.
Yes, and he's not perfect.
And his whole relationship with Mystique. I know this isn't from the comics. I know people give it shit, but I like the whole surrogate sister relationship that they have.
Yeah, I think that worked out really well for something that they had no basis to put that in, but it just worked.
Yeah, it was a really good idea.
Yeah, because Mystique wasn't really anything in the first film anyway.
Yeah.
She was just a henchman character.
Yeah, and I liked the Zazel because it's fun seeing Jason Fleming actually getting a role.
I mean, does he have a...
He says "niet" in Russian.
That's right. Nothing.
Yeah, he's one of those actors who he tends to show up in movies for like 1 minute, maybe 5. They're like, oh, he's in a lot of this movie. He gets this really cool scene where he like teleports people up into the air and then drops them.
Yeah, he basically does the Nightcrawler scene again, but a bit more crazy.
Yeah. Well, in the comics, he's Nightcrawler's father.
Yeah. That's why I said it.
Which not. I don't know what the deal is in the movie. I'm not going to get into it because I'll just confuse people.
Yeah, anything to do with Apocalypse, we don't know, and we're just not going to mention anything.
But yeah, fun movie, flawed, but it was I enjoy it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and like I said, it was a lot better than people expected, and it's pretty damn good in the whole scheme of comic book movies.
And next up after that, two years later, they came out with the Wolverine, which, once again, we'll get into more detail on that later because we have a draft of it. But I enjoy that movie.
I thought it was pretty damn good.
Yeah,
for the most part.
It's pretty damn good. It loses its shit. Like, you can't believe in the third act when it just decides it's going to be this. It's one of those things where even the basic things that happen in the third act could have worked if they just toned it down a few notches.
True.
Instead of having like a 15-foot tall cyborg, make it like a suit of armor that does some of the same functions, only smaller.
Yeah, I mean it was Iron Man.
Yeah, and cut out the bits where the woman sheds her skin and starts hissing.
That was weird. I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, she's taking this. What the hell? Why is she Splice? She looked like the woman, the thing from Splice. You remember that film?
I know what you mean, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure people will know what I'm talking about.
All I know is I know what it means. It's like they create the mutant thing, and then Adrian Brody fucks it.
Yes, basically.
It fucks it with his nose, probably.
It's the Cube director, so you know it's going to be a bit weird.
Yeah, who directed a shitload of Hannibal episodes.
Yes, that's why Catherine Isabel was in there.
Yes, go watch that show, people.
But yes, the Wolverine, I think, did a lot of good for the character as well. Gave him a lot of interesting history. I like the fact that a lot of the history, I mean, there's not much to it, but the fact that he was a POW in Japan, I think that's really interesting.
I think those scenes are more interesting than any of the flashbacks we get in Origins.
Absolutely. It's so much more interesting than the entire stuff with the stupid mutant team in Origins.
Yes, and I like how it plays out really low-key for a superhero movie for the most part.
Oh, no. That's Thor.
What? Oh.
Low-key. I'm sorry.
I've read a book where they made that same joke.
I'm sorry.
Where low-key goes by the alias low-key.
Oh, God.
But yeah. It is a toned down, should I say, superhero movie where it's very, it's very restrained. It's a very quiet film. I'd say it's arguably visually one of the best of the X-Men movies, because there's a lot of just
great moments.
Incredible shots in it, especially using like reflections in the glass.
And the whole train section is fantastically done.
Yes, that is awesome. Although I kind of doubt that the Yakuza guys could actually hang on to the top of it.
That was a bit unbelievable.
Like, I can buy low.
Oh, also, this is random, but you know the scene at the funeral?
Yeah.
I've actually been to that temple in Tokyo, just outside the Tokyo Tower, and it's pretty much exactly like that.
So they rebuilt it very well after Godzilla crushed it. After the Gamera movie where Gauss like knocked over the tower and roosted on it.
Yeah, that tower gets fucked up in a lot of films.
Which, that trilogy, the Gamera trilogy, great movies, but back on topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I like how it makes the character feel a little more human.
Yes.
I like the redesign of his claws, too.
Yes, that was one of the first things I noticed. I was like, shit, those actually look a lot better than I've noticed them recently. You know? They were kind of like, they kind of look like katanas in a way.
Yeah.
Which I think was the point.
And they look more like claws than his other ones, which just looked like knives.
Yes. They had a bit more visceral look to them, and it worked out. Plus the fact that a big plot point in the movie is the fact that he has bone claws, because that's the whole thing with we won't get into that just yet.
I like that they remembered he had bone claws.
Yeah, I like that, even though they forgot it for Days of Future Past.
Oh, he does have bone claws in Days of Future Past.
He does, but not in the future when he should have them again.
Oh, that part. Oh, okay.
That still irritates me, because there's no fucking explanation.
Well, I think that's down to bad timing, just because the movies ran up against each other, and they just like, well, what the fuck?
I guess, but they did have the prosthetics for the bone claws. It's not like they couldn't have just given him bone claws.
He had a metal manipulator on his team. That's it.
Well, I always said, because I rewatched this film as well recently, if they made the claws look kind of crude, as if Magneto had just taken a shit ton of metal and just stuck them onto the claws, I think that would have made them look really cool.
Yeah.
And kind of given a bit more history to this. And
made
how
them Mad Max looking.
Yeah, and it kind of would have said, that's the kind of level they need to get to in this war. You know, and I just like that idea, but they just didn't bother with it, which irritates me.
But yeah, the Wolverine, it had a ballsy kind of ending like what they did there. And James Mangold, actually, who directed it, he said that he was surprised Fox let him do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting, sort of solid little character piece that goes completely insane towards the end. Still good. It's still good in its own way. It's just out of place.
Yeah, and the fact that in the film, it's like the Silver Samurai in name only.
Yes, definitely. And then the next year after that, we got Days of Future Past, which
was teased at the end of the Wolverine.
It was, and it's my favorite of the X-Men movies.
I think it's pretty damn good, and people don't give it enough credit, in my opinion.
No, a lot of people just slayed it off saying, oh, it's exactly the same as the other X-Men movies.
Well, it's just not. It's so much more interesting. The fact that you've got these two stories coexisting, but not coexisting as well, that's kind of the point.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
And that was a movie which that had me hooked from the first trailer, because it's like the two casts were just perfectly sort of presented.
Yeah. Just that scene where you have McAvoy and Stewart talking.
Yeah.
That sold me instantly.
That is a brilliant scene in the movie, too.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before in another one of these videos, but the line, he says, I don't want your future.
Yes.
And I think that's perfectly delivered.
He says it in a reaction to getting flashes of The Last Stand.
Yes, as well. Which might have been a little bit of a dig as well.
A little bit on the nose. Deadpool appreciated that moment, I guarantee.
Yes. But it was well acted as well, and it was very I wouldn't say it was dark, because it wasn't dark, it wasn't gritty, but it was more human. It was more realistic.
It was grounded.
Grounded, that's the word. That's exactly.
And I love the history stuff they did, because they definitely had fun with the 70s setting.
Yeah, and they kind of incorporated it, but didn't incorporate it, and all this stuff.
Yeah, and the way they did set up a whole alternate history timeline that they were playing around with, where Colossus was like a Chernobyl baby.
Yes,
stuff like that, and that apparently the Quicksilver, he competed in the Olympics, and there was controversy. Quicksilver, scene stealer,
Oh yeah, I mean that. I mean, I think he wasn't in it enough. It was Evan Peters, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I would like to say that he was the ass kicker in Kick-Ass, but he got recast for the second movie, so no, I can't. Right. I can't really say that Kick-Ass and Ass Kicker were both Quicksilver.
Yeah, but it's I mean, those scenes are definitely the standout. The whole, basically the Magneto heist film that happens in the movie is fantastic.
Yeah, that whole kitchen scene is just amazing.
Yeah, and how the music is like, he plays this music and it's like, what music is this? This isn't action movie music.
Yeah, it's time in the bottle.
Yeah, and it works really well. And the attention to detail in that as well, because personal music players weren't really a thing, but the one he has was like a really expensive, rare thing at the time, and it did exist.
Which he probably stole.
But I just like that attention to detail that they still kept it within the time period.
And it's so much better what they originally were going to do, which was find young Juggernaut and have him break through the building.
No, we don't need more Juggernaut, bitch.
And I like Juggernaut, but I don't need him.
No.
But it was, yeah. What was I going to say? Peter Dinklage was awesome.
Oh yeah, Peter Dinklage. Even though, again, he kind of doesn't really give a shit about the actual whole thing. His performance is fine.
Yeah.
But you can tell he doesn't really care about the actual, the whole X-Men thing. He always feels like, to me, that yes, he's there for a paycheck, but he's still going to do a good job.
Yeah.
Which I guess could be irritating for some people, but it still works out.
Well, I mean, it was better than, say, his performance in Pixels.
Yes, definitely.
Don't watch that. Don't watch that movie.
No. Or Destiny.
I don't know that movie.
No, it's a video game.
Oh, okay.
They had
that game. Well, yeah, Days of Future Past, and I will admit, the bit where Logan wakes up at the end, and he sees all his old teammates alive again, it's like, oh, that's perfect.
Yes.
And he, hugs Cyclops.
Yeah, it was a nice touch to bring them all back. And especially in the theatrical version, where that was the only bit of Rogue you saw.
I haven't seen the Rogue cut, so...
I highly recommend it. Everything makes much more sense.
Isn't it mainly just future stuff they added back in?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
it makes a lot more sense.
And there is the bit where they watch a bit of a Star Trek episode, and I think it's City on the Edge of Forever.
Yes, that was a moment as well. But the stuff in the Rogue cut, the bit where Magneto breaks in to steal his helmet?
Yeah.
That's intercut with Magneto and Iceman breaking Rogue out of a Sentinel experimentation facility.
Okay, that sounds...
Yeah, and it's intercut really nicely, and it's so well done. So yeah, I really recommend it.
Yeah, I'll find it eventually. But and I should mention Beast's makeup a million times better than it was in First Class. Because in First Class it was ass. It looked like he had blue carpet on him.
He kind of looked like you probably don't know the Werebears.
The Werebears?
Yeah, they were basically like boy versions of Care Bears.
Oh.
So they were teddy bears that turned into like werewolf things, and that's exactly what I remember them.
That's a real thing?
Yeah, I had one as a child.
Okay, so yeah, Days of Future Past, awesome. Like I said, I haven't seen Apocalypse yet.
Yeah.
Deadpool, what more is there really to say about Deadpool?
We're going to take you to see the Professor. Which one, Stewart or McAvoy?
These timelines are so confusing.
Yeah, perfect.
Did you ever see 127 Hours? Spoiler alert!
Everything about that. And of course, Origins being one of my most hated films, the fact that it just rips the piss out of that film is beautiful.
And the Hugh Jackman face.
Yeah, everything about it is just brilliant.
That's got a sequel confirmed.
Yes, which is fantastic.
Yes, which it would be really funny if they got a Hugh Jackman cameo as Hugh Jackman, not as Wolverine.
That would be actually clever.
Which, I mean, he did a cameo in Night at the Museum 3, so...
Yeah. Oh, but as they said at the end of Deadpool, there will be Cable.
You don't know
and it's going to be Keira Knightley.
Oh,
I mean, there is actually a mocked up poster with Keira Knightley as Cable, and it works fine.
I don't know if I could buy her performance, though.
No, but it would be a very interesting choice.
Cable's one of those characters where I hope they just don't explain him at all, because that will definitely make the continuity worse. It
really would. But doesn't he have, a lot of ties with Apocalypse anyway?
I don't know about that. I just know that his storyline is that he's Cyclops' son by somebody, and then him and Jean went into the future to raise him.
Yeah.
And then their daughter from the Days of Future Past timeline ends up taking care of him, and he catches like a cybernetic virus.
It's
the
confusing.
Summers family tree is completely fucked up.
Which is ironic because he's a completely boring bastard. But anyway.
And then when they try to make him interesting, he's just an asshole.
Yes, pretty much.
But yeah, so those are the movies. I guess we should get into the X-Men Origins Wolverine script.
Yes.
Now, this one it's just titled Wolverine, and it's written by David Benioff, who's one of the credited writers on the movie, and with revisions by David Ayer, who didn't get credit, so I guess not much of his stuff is in the movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask how much of David Ayer's stuff survived.
I actually don't know, because I don't know what his stuff in this draft is. And what's interesting about it is that it placed on the 2005 blacklist, so it would have been a draft from before this one, because this is dated June 2006.
Yeah.
And it got 1 vote, so it's right down at the bottom of the list. And interestingly enough, a script that got 2 votes was The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
Oh! Christ.
I'm nobody's bitch. That movie with the pointless CGI King Ghidorah.
Yes. Another one of my favourite videos, in fact.
Yeah.
I could go on.
Yes, let's not.
Yeah. Let's just say it was shit and move on.
But yeah, what's interesting about the script is that Benioff was actually hired in 2004. So they were working on this thing before The Last Stand came out.
That's probably why there's, like, such haphazard continuity with it.
Yeah, and although it contradicts X-Men 2, so I don't know. It's like they gave him, like, a list of things from X-Men 2, and then he just didn't bother to watch any of the other movies, so none of this makes sense within the continuity of the films. And this is saying something, because this is a continuity that's kind of fucked as it is. This is worse.
It is.
And Benioff, his work from before this, he wrote the 25th Hour, the Edward Norton movie, which I've heard good things about.
Yeah, apparently I've heard good things about.
He wrote a movie called Stay, I've heard good things about. He wrote Troy with Brad Pitt, which I like that movie.
I don't know.
I don't think it's great. I think it's watchable, but I have the director's cut, so maybe that helps.
Yeah, possibly.
And after this, the thing he did after this that's most notable is he's one of the showrunners on Game of Thrones.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so he can do better than this. I don't know. I don't know what the deal with this script is, but he can do better. Yeah. And David Ayer, let's see, he wrote Training Day. He's wrote a bunch of other things, but he's probably he directed End of Watch, which people liked. I haven't seen it. He directed Fury with Brad Pitt, which I liked.
Oh, right.
And he's writing and directing Suicide Squad.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, which has me really interested in that.
I don't know. It depends on how much of this script is his.
Yeah, well, apparently it is his script. There isn't. Apparently they had him write it, so. But the movie, even if it's bad, it looks like it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've been saying, basically.
Yeah, so it'll be a movie where even if it's bad, depending on how bad it is, I might give it a few watches just because.
I will more than likely buy the DVD after watching it.
Yeah, just because it looks insane.
Yeah.
It might be one of the better Jack Portman movies.
Yeah.
And one of the movies that, weirdly enough, has the guy from Hostel and Kick and Wing from Joe Dirt in it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, this script, I feel like before we go into detail, we should just generally talk about it. Because it starts off, like, at a certain point in the movie where he's living with Kayla.
Yes.
It's the love interest who, quote-unquote, dies and sets off his revenge thing against Sabretooth, which leads him to get the adamantium, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of similar scenes to it. But the things that are missing is, like, the whole, like, first, 15 minutes is gone.
I would say more than that. A lot of it is gone.
Yeah, I was going to say, up through the whole thing through the opening credits, gone. The whole thing
there's none of the history. There's none of the... They're not brothers. There's nothing to do with the X-Men team with Stryker.
In fact, it's not even really sure what he did with Stryker.
No, it doesn't even mention it.
But we know he worked as an assassin for Stryker. Because he would give him a list of names that he wanted crossed off, they mentioned.
Yes.
But there are flashbacks here, like little sort of weird dream sequence flashbacks he has, which I do like, because they are kind of atmospheric and they are more interesting than what we saw in the movie.
They were kind of similar to the flashbacks in X2.
Yeah, he has like flashbacks to like Vietnam, and like there's a weird bit where Stryker has a necklace made of ears. So I guess, and this concept, Stryker was Dolph Lundgren from Universal Soldier,
or Kurt.
Kurtz didn't have ears, did he?
Didn't he? I thought that was a thing in.
Well, in Apocalypse Now, he spends the entire movie sitting in the dark, so maybe I didn't see.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's selected heads on the side.
That was it.
Yeah, that's it. But no, the ears are from from Universal Soldier, where Dolph Lundgren. Are we having fun yet? Yeah. Also, no, we're not, because it's X-Men Origins.
Yeah. Also, The Walking Dead did the whole ears thing as well.
Oh, when did they do that again?
Norman Reedus does it.
Oh yeah, he went crazy in the woods in season 2.
Yeah.
When he was hallucinating. Yeah, when he was hallucinating Michael Rooker, he was collecting zombie ears.
Randomly, for no real reason.
Yeah. But, yeah, and so the whole thing is like, okay, so that whole opening thing is gone. There's no Deadpool, thank God.
Yeah, thank God. That was the biggest change I liked.
Yes, there's no Gambit, thank God.
Yes. There were times when I was thinking, okay, Gambit's going to come up. He's going to come up now. And it never happened.
Yeah, and there's no 3 Mile Island stuff. In fact, the time period on this thing is super vague.
Yeah, it's very undetermined what time period it takes place in.
And instead of 3 Mile Island, he goes back to Alkali Lake, which is like, okay, so he went a great big circle for no real reason.
Yeah, because doesn't he actually go to like New Orleans?
Yeah, he goes to Vegas, and then he goes to I think Nebraska to find Blob. Then he goes to New Orleans, and then he turns
all the way back to the Canadian Rockies.
Which they actually forget that Alkali Lake is in Canada.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In this script, because there's a point where he goes like, he mentions a state, and they refer to it as being in the country, and it's like, it's in Canada. Did you not see X-Men 1?
Yeah, it's in that state of Canada.
Yeah, it's a country that doesn't have states. And what's interesting is that instead of opening with, the origin scene, which is based on the comics, it opens with him.
Which is that origin scene takes place in colonial times. We should mention.
Yeah, in 1845.
Yeah,
which is actually earlier than it took place in the comics.
Mm.
It took place in the 1880s, I think, in the comics.
Really?
Yeah. And I've heard that. I haven't read that comic, but I've heard it's actually pretty good. It's just really. God, I'm going to use that word again, low key.
Yeah.
But and it's a scene of him as like a kid walking along the street with a backpack on, and these jocks drive up in a car and start giving him shit, and then his claws pop out for the first time.
Yeah, and it specifically says high school lettermen.
Yes, and it points out that his father is a guy who robbed the Roadhouse and went to prison, and you find out later he would beat Logan with the back of an axe.
Yeah, so it everything basically says the oldest that this could take place is in the 50s.
Yes.
Give or take. Which is just stupid. That's terrible.
In fact, they say it's a 55 Oldsmobile.
Oh, well, there you go. Oh, no, wait. Oldsmobile Super 88.
Okay, I'm wrong.
But yeah, it feels like the 50s.
Yeah, it definitely feels 50s, and I don't like that, because I like the idea that Logan is really, really old and has seen a lot of shit.
Yeah, because, I mean, when you think about it as well, that if he was born around the 50s, then that means he's been in, 2 wars? As opposed to, the several, 10, 11 wars?
Well,
he might have been in?
Going from when this would have taken place, if he was born in the 50s, it would have been Vietnam, maybe the Persian Gulf.
Maybe. But that's it.
Yeah, and it just sort of takes away from this character who has this long history. Instead, he's just a guy.
Yeah, there's just nothing interesting about his history.
I like the idea that he's from the 1800s. I like that kind of Highlander kind of thing.
Yeah, and the fact that he's been through all these wars makes more sense for his trauma.
Hell, in fact, this is how you do the Wolverine prequel. Make it Highlander crossed with the Bourne Identity.
Yeah.
A good Highlander movie. Not Highlander 2. Don't reveal him to be an alien.
So just Highlander 1.
Yes. And The Search for Vengeance, but that's an animated spin.
Yeah.
And a TV show, which is good most of the time.
Mm.
But the whole thing about that's just kind of lame. And I do think that it does start off relatively strong after that.
Yeah.
Where you do get the sense that he's this guy who's done bad things and he's trying to find a better life.
But I should say as well, sorry, before we move on, that the 50s thing, it kind of epitomizes what this script is, which is everything about it is not exceptional. There's nothing noteworthy here. It's all very standard, very boring stuff. And I think that opening itself just says it all. Because they took everything interesting about his history and just destroyed it.
Yeah.
You know? Sorry, go on.
But yeah, I do like the early scenes with him and Kayla Silverfox aren't terrible here. Like, and because you're not seeing this after, 25 minutes of just crap?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he was on a super team, but he didn't do anything.
Yeah, in the film, he literally does fuck all.
Yeah, so does Sabretooth. Sabretooth does fuck all in that mission.
Yeah, except kill maybe one civilian.
As opposed to the video game where
he tears arms off after Wolverine has killed an entire fucking platoon.
And then there's a lava monster.
Yeah. Oh, and then Wolverine criticizes Sabretooth for killing 2 guys.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
After Logan has just like killed a ton of people.
After he's committed close to genocide.
Yeah, basically. But no, I mean, I don't mind the early scenes. It does sort of underline the whole. It feels a lot like Commando, which it becomes even more like Commando in the movie because it's a member of his old team killing off members of the team. Yeah,
it does. It does have that kind of really cheesy action movie Schwarzenegger stuff.
Because, I mean, it's literally his former commanding officer comes, Logan, come work with me. He's like, no.
Okay, we'll find a way to make you come work.
And then the bad guy shows up, kills someone he likes, and he's like, I'm going to go on a rampage.
Yeah, if she'd have been kidnapped, it was just the plot of Commando.
Yes.
If she was kidnapped instead of killed.
And this does include one of the lines I actually kind of like in the movie, where Stryker says, then forget about yourself, do it for your country. I'm Canadian.
Yeah.
Because that's a fact that they always seem to forget about.
Yeah.
Wolverine. In fact, one of Wolverine's nicknames in the comics is the Big Knucklehead.
Yeah, that was a good line.
But speaking of which, it's not even clear that this takes place in Canada at this point.
No, like I said, it's very undefined.
Because the foreman at the lumber yard he's working at is described as having a Maine accent.
Yeah.
So like, okay, that's the Stephen King cameo.
Yeah.
And of course, as you say in your review, Logan is a lumberjack because no matter what he does, it has to be manly as fuck.
Yeah, it's true. And and even in the film, it's kind of undefined where it is because there's a moment where Sabretooth is in a bar, and the barman says, "You're not from around here," despite the fact that it's supposed to take place in Canada, and he's got like a southern accent.
Yeah, and I should mention this also has some of the really bad dialogue from the movie.
Yes,
too.
That's supposed to be funny, but it's just shit.
Yeah, it has smells like government.
What is that? Yeah,
it's because he has super smell.
Because he has to mention it.
Yeah, and then the origin of the name Wolverine, which I'll let you talk about.
Oh god, that entire story is just so ham-fisted.
The myth about Kue Kawatsu and the moon.
Kue Kawatsu and the trickster. Never trust anyone called trickster. Because that's a funny line.
That was funnier than the Kukuchu got screwed.
Which is in every single version of this. Script, video game, movie, and I fucking hate it.
Although, by the time we got to the movie, it was Kukuchu got screwed.
Yeah.
Which that does sound like something Wolverine would say, but...
I think the delivery was a bit off as well.
Well, once again, Hugh Jackman didn't really want to make that movie.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, and it's a shame, because he's actually not bad in the movie.
No, he's one of the more standout moments, because he does the action scenes like he always does really great.
But that storyline in both the script and the movie kind of points out, the whole way it doesn't make sense in terms of X-Men 2.
Yeah.
Because in X-Men 2, the whole scene at the end where he's like, where Stryker says, "Oh, you were always an animal, Wolverine," and it's implied that the Wolverine was like his military code name or something.
Yeah, that's what I always assumed, that he was the Wolverine before Weapon X.
Yes, and here it's like, oh, he's not a Wolverine because he's an animalistic killer. It's because he's a romantic.
Yeah, it's so random. They completely changed the meaning of the name on its head.
Yes,
and not in a good way.
It's such a cheesy romance novel thing.
It is. And the fact that he goes like to the ends of the earth, and this is in the script and the movie, to find Sabretooth because he killed his girlfriend. Then he finds out that the woman's not dead. Spoilers.
Yeah.
And then he just goes, "Fine, I'm going home." It's like fucking Cartman.
Screw you, guys.
Yeah, and he doesn't do anything. He just leaves them to do whatever the hell they want. This huge plan that's going to destroy all mutants or whatever.
Yes, and one thing that's in here early on in the script that it's similar to a scene in the movie, but incredibly different, is Sabretooth going to a carnival and killing one of the freaks, except instead of being Meriadoc Brandybuck, it's some guy called Beak who's like a mutant Birdman.
Yeah, although I do remember when Origins was in like pre-production, Dominic Monaghan was going to be Beak.
Oh!
I do remember that.
I didn't know that.
At first they were going to put him as Beak, and then they changed him to a character called Bolt, who's just a psychic.
And he controls electricity and stuff.
Yeah, it's just pointless.
I was kind of disappointed when I first saw the movie he got killed off, because I'm like, I like that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely more interesting character than fucking Wade.
But Wade is... And we should mention about Wade, Ryan Reynolds has said since Deadpool came out that he only took the role because they said they would get someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't blame him for not being great.
No, I don't blame him, because he clearly knew he was in shit and couldn't be arsed.
Yes. But yeah, so that scene is weird, and I like to mention about the carnival scene in the movie, is that the woman who walks up and does the light bulb test, I know her from Silent Hill Revelation, where she played Heather.
Oh shit, yeah, she was.
She's one of the actors in that I actually really like in that movie.
I completely forgot about that. She's like a nothing character. She just comes and goes.
Yeah. I only know that's her because I looked her up on IMDb and I went, oh yeah, that woman.
Wow, that's random.
And so, okay, the script pretty much moves on as the movie did. And one thing I'd like to know is that the way Sabretooth is described here, he sounds more like Tyler Mane was in physical appearance.
Got long hair.
He's taller, he's got long hair, he's got the black eyes.
Yeah, so I do think, obviously they were going for the Tyler Mane thing.
Yes.
But also not.
That gets fucked up by the end. We'll get to that. And one thing I'd like to, because the storyline goes on, and so basically she's driving away from the lumberyard, and they actually do set up the whole hypnosis thing here that she does, only it's way more subtle than it is in the movie.
Yeah, it's way more subtle, and it's so subtle they don't even mention it in the script.
Yes, it's so subtle, it's like, it's just there, but I like that better than because in the movie it's this drawn-out scene of her getting the guy to move his car. And here it's just like, hey, could you move your machine? He was like, I can't do it. And then she looks at him, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, it was subtle and clever, which is something I would never say for an Origins movie.
Yes, especially that Origins movie.
Yes.
And so Logan, he smells and hears that something is wrong. And so he goes and he finds her dead, and it's presumed Sabretooth because they did the scene of him scratching his claws in the...
Yes, in the car.
In the
Same
car.
scene in the movie.
Yeah. And he finds her, and one thing I notice that's different here that's also better, he doesn't fucking scream.
Yeah,
and
he doesn't
do a pan out to the hills. He doesn't go, no, and then it pans out to the hills.
Yeah, it was a lot better. Again, cheesy. Just cheesy.
And he goes, and the bar scene is pretty much the same.
Well, I think the bar scene is better when he knows who Sabretooth is.
Yeah, it is.
Because in the script, it's like, he goes there, finds this guy. There's just no impact to it.
In the script, he goes there, he finds the guy, they fight, and it's actually specifically pointed out that he stomps both sets of claws here.
Yes, it does. Because in the movie, he only does one, doesn't he?
Yeah, he only does one, and that shot got reused in Days of Future Past for some reason.
Yes. But yeah, it does specifically say that.
And the scene where he wakes up in the hospital is the same.
Yeah, that's the same. Well, I should say as well that in the script, the actual fight was a lot less interesting.
Yes.
Because they don't do ridiculous stuff like throwing him into a tractor.
No. Well, I don't really like that scene in the movie because it's not very well shot.
No, it's not very well shot, but I think it does well to show that these guys are superhuman.
Yes. And one thing I want to point out, because it's not specified at any point in the script that Sabretooth has the same healing powers as Wolverine.
Yes, it doesn't specify his powers at all.
Which, that will lead me into the ending, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
And so he accepts the offer from Stryker to get the adamantium, and the same terrible dialogue is here. I can promise you two things. One, you'll undergo more pain than any other man can endure, and you will have your revenge.
Yeah.
And what Logan should say is,
go fuck yourself.
Which, I love that that's his catchphrase now.
Yes, I love that. And I just had to use that.
Yes. And before we get into that, I just want to talk more about this setting, because it gets more and more obvious as it goes along. this really doesn't make any sense because Stryker talks about how Washington has a master list of mutants.
Yeah.
And that it got leaked to Sabretooth somehow, who's broken out of a prison. And they have
it's a lot of the stuff, it very much feels like they just didn't bother with any of the backstory. And they just cobbled it together with whatever they could think of.
Yes, and because the thing is that if this is taking place in the late 70s, because it's really vague, nobody should really know that much about mutants, and it becomes increasingly prominent throughout the script that mutants are this widely known thing, to the fact that they have their own nightclubs.
Yeah, there's actually it's like straight out of True Blood. How there's like this nightclub specifically for mutants, just like there would be for one for vampires.
Yes.
And it's exactly that kind of thing. Like, if you imagine the whole nightclub for vampires, it's the exact same thing, just with mutants.
Yes.
And it's so ridiculous.
And it's so weird because, okay, mutants should not be widespread public knowledge, at least in the original timeline, until X-Men 1. But if Wolverine's origin stuff, prequel stuff, is taking place when mutants are common knowledge, then that means it's taking place at the same time as the trilogy?
Yeah.
It's so weird throughout this thing, how that is.
And it really is. They just didn't know what they were doing. Oh, and what's the bar called?
I forget what it's called. It was run by a guy called Barber. Oh, it was Club Superior.
That's right, and to get in, he says, "Are you superior?" And you say, "Yes," because apparently that's all you need. And
well, Logan showed off his powers, too.
Yeah, but it's so crap.
Yeah. We're jumping a bit ahead.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead, but one of the things I did want to mention as well is that it felt a lot like the bar scene in Constantine.
Oh, yeah, Papa Midnight's bar.
Papa Midnight's bar. It was exactly the same kind of setup.
Only without Shia LaBeouf trying.
Yes. Which was a blessing.
So, yeah, he accepts the whole adamantium thing, and they take him to Alkali Lake. Mm. And first off, the adamantium facility, mistake, it's above ground here.
Yeah.
Mistake, it's below ground in X-Men 2. And one thing I do like here is that they do introduce some of the characters from the Weapon X comic.
They do?
Yeah, Dr. Cornelius.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And Carol Hines were both characters, where Cornelius was not evil, but he was a pragmatist, and Carol Hines was the sympathetic one.
Yes, and I didn't actually, because I did the Let's Play of the video game, just so people know. And it does actually go into that stuff, and you actually hear logs from Cornelius in the game.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so even the game did it a bit better than the movie.
Yeah, if you can't tell, guys, the video game is better than the
movie. It is, on so many levels.
But they're there, and one thing they changed here that's better than the movie is that he gets his dog tag swapped out for the Wolverine ones before they strap him into the machine.
Yeah, because in the thing, he's like immediately in there, and I don't know how, but they somehow ask him what he wants on his dog tag, takes away the old dog tags, makes the new ones, give them back to him, and it's like a few minutes has passed.
Like, I can just imagine Stryker going, "God damn it, Logan, why didn't you tell us this before we strapped you in?"
Yeah. It's like, what do you want on your name tags? Fluffy. That's what, it's kind of like, if he'd have said anything else as well, it's like, oh shit, we're going to have to change the bloody letters on the stamp machine.
And okay, so they strap him into the machine and they do it. And there is no, like, really ham-handed exposition about what Weapon X means.
Oh, yeah.
About how it's a Roman numeral for 10. Which, I will admit, before I saw the movie, I didn't know that was actually a thing in the comics, that Weapon X was Weapon 10.
Right.
It was, and that's actually part of the Weapon Plus program, and part of the first phase was Captain America.
Oh, yeah, he was part of the Weapon X thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know. I thought the movie just made that up and it was all bullshit. And I went, oh, crap, it was a Grant Morrison thing. Shit.
Oh, yeah, Grant Morrison.
But, so yeah, they're there, and even though the procedure is really, really short in the script as well as in the movie, I feel like it feels just a little bit more brutal here.
Yeah, but, yeah, it's I think the procedure is almost identical, but I think it's the way it's done, it's the way it's described is better than in the film.
And the needles aren't red hot.
Yeah, it's like, because I said this in my review, it's like they have to make it as brutal as possible. So, needles, Wait, no, drills! Red hot drills! It's crazy.
Yes.
The way they just escalate it.
But the way they sort of flipped it in back and forth with the flashbacks, it felt like it was severely traumatic.
Yes, and it actually worked better.
And what's really funny here is that he bursts out of the machine for not really any reason here. He's just going nuts. Like he doesn't do the ridiculous thing where he hears Stryker from across the room underwater.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well that in the film, the basically the moment is he gets the adamantium skeleton, and immediately Stryker's like, "Okay, wipe his memory. We need to move on." They didn't even test it. They didn't even test to see if he would cooperate with them. They just they made him indestructible and then pissed him off. It's the stupidest moment in that film.
And then here, they don't piss him off. He just goes nuts, runs out the door. And what's really funny is Stryker's like, "Don't worry. There's a thick blast door." And then he gets a message from the radio. It's like, oh shit, he cut through it.
Don't worry, there's an electric fence.
Oh shit! But before the electric fence, there was a bit I liked where he fights the wolf.
Oh, the wolf scene, yeah, it was random, but it worked.
It was random, but it was cool. It kind of tied into the animalist. See, I don't hate the entire script.
No, and when I was reading it, I was imagining the scene and just the idea of Hugh Jackman in his Wolverine stuff, like full berserker rage mode as well.
Yeah,
just squaring off with these wolves. That scene was like, it just works really well for the character.
Yes, and I like the bit after that where they send the dog catchers basically to go get them, and then it's like guys, and it cuts them and they're all dead.
Yeah,
that was cool. So okay, he breaks out through the electric fence, and then you get the scene where he meets Clark Kent's parents.
Oh yeah,
from the movie. They're non,
and they really are.
Yeah, they're the non-union Canadian equivalents of the Kents.
Yeah,
Simpsons reference.
They're from the alternate universe where Superman fell into Canada instead of Russia.
And it's pretty much the same, only shorter. There's no ridiculous comedy scene with the claws.
Which I still maintain makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. And the effects are terrible, too.
Yeah, the claw effects in Origins is absolutely awful.
I mean, they did it 3 times perfectly well.
Yeah.
And then they just fucked it up. And, okay, so he's there with them. He's there a lot. It's a much briefer sequence, too. He doesn't really spend any time with them.
Yeah.
And then Agent Zero, who's Stryker's sort of assassin, just goes kill crazy and shoots them for no reason. Because here, they have no reason to just go, like, full force after Wolverine like they do in the movie. Because he's definitely against them at that point.
Yeah, because in the script, he just escapes because he's kind of disorientated and just gets out of there.
Yeah.
In the movie, he's definitely the enemy, so it makes a bit more sense. But here, yeah, it just makes no sense for them to basically fire hellfire missiles at him.
Although I did like how he survived the explosion and then snuck around and destroys the helicopter here.
Yeah.
I actually like this action scene better than the action scene in the movie, and that tells you something.
The action scene in the movie is literally Logan flying dick first into victory.
Yes, it is. Although I do like the bit of him walking away from the explosion.
Classic.
It's cheesy, but it's fun. and okay, he goes and chases after Agent Zero, who's in the SUV, and it's actually specifically mentioned here he's going against orders because Stryker ordered him to withdraw.
That's right.
And so he manages to get a hold of Agent Zero, who tries to bullshit him and be like, funny how good innocent people tend to die around you, but it makes more sense here because he's trying to distract Wolverine so he can get a knife on him. Yeah,
but that line doesn't make much sense. Because I think I say that in the video as well. It's like, it's your fault that I killed those people.
Well, here at least it's clear that he's bullshitting.
Yeah, it's clear that he's just biding time.
Whereas in the movie, he's just being an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, piss off the guy you've already pissed off enough.
Where you are completely immobilized in this wreckage of a helicopter.
Yes, and your equilibrium powers don't do anything for you.
Is that what it was?
I guess. I don't know what Agent Zero's powers are.
It was really never explained what his powers were.
He looks like Christian Bale from from equilibrium when he's fighting. So
Yeah, it does. And he has these weird... he was good with guns, that was it.
yes. And was he
Yeah.
a mutant or not? I don't know.
It wasn't... It didn't mention it at all. That's what really annoyed me.
But yeah, so he dies, and there's a scene sprinkled in here somewhere where Sabretooth goes and kills a mutant named Francis, which I thought was funny because of Deadpool.
Yeah. That, again, though, it was completely pointless after the revelation of Wolverine going after Sabretooth.
Yeah.
It was just added filler.
Yeah, we don't need to see him going around killing more mutants because we know he's doing this already.
Yeah, we know he's doing this, and we don't give a shit about these mutants we never met.
And there's some other stuff here and there. Like, I think they cut back to Alkali Lake, because Stryker never leaves Alkali Lake in the script.
Yeah.
But so yeah, Logan basically, he goes to Las Vegas to talk to Wraith, who says, well, because they mentioned that Sabretooth was in this special mutant prison earlier, says, oh, go talk to some of the people he was incarcerated with. Go talk to this guy they call Blob, who lives in Elgin, Nebraska.
Yeah, there's no real connection between the characters, just Blob shows up.
Yes, and Wraith, he's not described as looking like Will.i.am.
No. Is he black in the script?
I don't think they specified, but he sounded like a country western kind of guy, so...
Yeah, I mean, the character in the film was kind of like that, because he had the whole cowboy hat and shit. But, yeah, it wasn't really very specific.
No. And so yeah, he's barely in it. Like, later on, there's a scene of Sabretooth killing him.
Was there, though, or was he just saying that he killed him?
Oh, no. He kills him in the script, because he shows up and he does the thing where he grabs his spine.
Right, but I don't think he uses any of his teleportation abilities.
No, he doesn't.
That's right. Yeah, that's what was weird about it, is that it's like it's similar to the movie, the fight I'm talking about.
It's in a different place.
It's in a different place. There's nothing exceptional about it. He just shows up and kills the guy, and it's not even that of an interesting fight. You know?
There's the little bit that, they did a few jobs together in the past or something.
Yeah, again, there's no backstory.
Yes, and then Wolverine, he hauls his ass over to Nebraska where he fights Blob in a grocery store, which I'll admit I found this scene kind of funny just because Logan is tossing fruit at him.
Yeah, the whole scene is really ridiculous.
Hey, Bub, lay off the pork rinds.
Yeah.
And he learns nothing from this scene.
No, nothing is learned, and the fact that they have no history makes it even more pointless.
I will admit, they cut out the stupid made-up-for-the-movie-only thing where being fat wasn't his mutation.
Yeah, it just seemed to be... I don't know what it was.
At least it's not that silly boxing match.
Yeah, the boxing match was just shit, especially with that ridiculous fat suit.
Which is like, why are you boxing this guy? Just stab him.
Yeah, just spring the claws out and threaten the guy. He's not that fast.
Did you just call me Blob? Which is a shame, because I think Kevin Durand was well cast.
Yeah, I think he played it well in the beginning, where he's not,
fat.
Yeah, he's big enough to kind of justify the name Blob.
Yeah,
but not ridiculous.
But Blob is supposed to be a big fat dude. That's the problem.
Yeah, it was difficult.
He's one of those characters you maybe should just not do in live action.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Just get Mike Myers to play him, for God's sake.
Yeah, the character I just don't think works outside of comics.
Yeah, it's odd. And so, yeah, that scene, he learns fuck all except, don't go talk to me. Go talk to this guy called Barbarous in New Orleans who shared a cell with Victor.
Oh.
And so he goes to New Orleans to Club Superior, and Barbarous is a guy with 4 arms. And I looked him up. He's actually a Marvel character.
Really?
He was a native of the Savage Land who was artificially mutated by Magneto.
Huh.
It's not what he is here.
No. That's far too interesting for the script.
I do like how the fight goes when Wolverine cuts off 2 of his hands. He goes like, it's like, you tell me what I want to know, or I'll cut off the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and is much learned from that?
He learns that Victor he didn't escape from the prison. He was released, and that he was working for Stryker.
That's right.
He cut the deal.
He just learns the big revelation, and that's it.
Yes.
Nothing else, really.
And so there's some other stuff here and there, like you get Stryker, he kills the general like he does in the movie, only instead of stabbing him, he poisons him and makes it look like a heart attack, which is a smarter move on Stryker's part.
Yeah, because Stryker was a fucking idiot.
And I can buy that he actually stays a general. Or a colonel.
Yeah, exactly, because it makes no sense that he would kill a superior officer and then still be in X2 as, what was he? Still a colonel.
Yeah, colonel.
Yeah.
And meet the president.
Yeah, and meet the fucking president. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that was stupid. Even when I was, 17 when the movie came out and I didn't care about a lot of this stuff, I'm still like, nope, that's stupid.
Which kind of says how bad the writing was, really.
Yeah, and it was a post-credit scene, too, where he gets arrested for it. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so basically what Wolverine, I forget what order he does this in, he calls up the Department of Agriculture, because there's...
Oh, yeah, that was the cover they were using.
Yeah, there's this weird bit, because Stryker is not military in the script, he's ex-military, he works for the Department of Agriculture, pest control, which is a stupid running joke. And he calls up Stryker saying, I know I'm coming for you. And then he goes to Carol Hines, because he knows she's not a bad person.
Oh, but can I just say as well, for that phone call scene, it takes place and has almost the exact same sort of momentum as that fake trailer in Scott Pilgrim with Chris Evans.
I forget about that.
Where in the trailer he's talking to the bad guys on the phone, and he says, "You're gonna hear 2 clicks. The first is me hanging up. The next is me pulling the trigger," and puts the phone down. And it felt exactly like that. It felt exactly like that. It was so hilarious.
Now I'm imagining Chris Evans as Wolverine.
It would work.
Yeah, he's really versatile, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes to Carol Hines, who explains the whole, it's not actually the Weapon X program, it's the Weapon Ultra program. And since number 10, and Victor was number 9, which I believe actually he wasn't number 9.
No.
In the comics, he was just part of 10.
Yeah, he was gonna be part of 10, but he couldn't take the adamantium, which was used in the film as well.
Was that part of the those comics? I don't remember that.
From what I remember, yeah, is that because that's why he was resentful of Wolverine, is that he wanted the adamantium skeleton and the claws, but he couldn't get them because he wasn't enhanced enough.
Because I know he wanted it in the movie, which it was never explained why he wanted it in the movie.
No. He doesn't really need it.
And the whole thing about him not being able to take the procedure doesn't make any sense, considering he's so much tougher than Wolverine.
Well, apparently that's what it was. His healing factor wasn't as good as Wolverine's was.
Okay, I guess.
I mean, I could be wrong. I could be misremembering, but it sounds plausible to me.
But yeah, she explains that the 11 is this new weapon, and they sprinkle the foreshadowing about Weapon 11 throughout this thing. There's some new weapon that Stryker is working on. It's supposed to be this big deal, makes the atom bomb look bad. And here's where the time frame gets really muddled, is because at some point they say that the Weapon Ultra program first started 64 years ago, and they mentioned World War II, so it would have to be the 40s. So that would place it roughly into 2000, so this means this takes place concurrently of X-Men 1, 2, and 3.
Which makes no sense.
It makes less sense than the timeline does currently.
Yeah. Again, it just feels like they didn't give a shit to do enough research. That's what it feels like. And it's more down to incompetence than deliberately trying to be, different.
Yeah, and okay, he gets Carol to help him, and she sneaks him into the base by he clings to the bottom of her car, and that's where we get the line, "Did you hit every speed bump in the state?" Because apparently Canada has states.
Yeah.
He sneaks in, he steals a uniform, as you do, which just happens to fit, as you do.
Oh, yeah, they do. There is a few lines where they make sure and get someone a similar build. But who the hell would be the same build as Wolverine? Have you seen the guy?
Comic book or movie.
Yeah. I mean, he's either going to be ridiculously short and bulky, or brick shithouse like he is in Origins.
And, and so they sneak in, she sneaks him into the Weapon 11 chamber, which is a cavern under the base, and it's clones of Victor, because he's the best hunting machine the best killing machine that Stryker has, and he wants to use them to basically do mutant genocide,
which is stupid as all hell.
And he has 10,000 of them?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous. Like there's huge vats because Weapon 11 isn't one per thing. It's a whole clone army.
Yes.
Because it's Star Wars now.
Prequel Star Wars, no less.
Yeah, so it's just so stupid, because what's so special about Victor exactly? It doesn't really specify why him.
It's not something that would be genetic either.
No, it's more the fact that he's obedient and likes killing mutants.
Which is never explained.
No, again, his hatred for mutants is never explained. Nothing about him is explained.
I will say this. It's not a great Weapon 11. Like, basically, it's clones of Victor with adamantium skeletons. And I'm guessing his fingernails are adamantium too?
Like, possibly.
Yeah.
He's going to have a sort of Lady Deathstrike thing going on.
But yeah, we forgot to talk about her earlier, but no, never mind. But yeah, it's not a great Weapon 11. It's better than the movie.
Well, I mean, I'll be the first to say that the movie is one of the worst things I've ever seen. I can say that. But at least the ending with not Deadpool and his stupid sword things that would never fit in his arms to begin with, it's a lot of that stuff, at least you can talk about it. There's something noteworthy there. Whereas this is just dull. There's nothing here to work with. It's just boring.
And there's not even a decent action scene with them.
No, they don't do anything with them. They just get crushed by the building.
Yeah.
Which, I'm skipping ahead a bit, but that's it. The way they get rid of them is just, Logan just crushes them all. It's incredibly dull and boring, and at least them fighting on top of a giant, smokestack on 3 Mile Island is far more interesting. So, and that's the one positive I can say about the film opposed to the script,
Yeah, but still, it's Deadpool, man.
I know.
It's Barakapool.
It really is.
That is terrible. And at the time, I didn't know a whole lot about Deadpool then, but I knew enough to know that was bullshit.
Yeah, I think most people did as well.
Yeah, it's just like, no, that's not it. They both suck. It just depends on which one you think sucks more.
It's true. They're both terrible, but it's kind of, you have to pick the lesser of two evils here.
And so Logan goes to go after Stryker, and that's where we get the reveal that Kayla Silverfox was a mutant working for Stryker all along, and that they faked her death.
It's just as boring as it was in the film.
And I think he even has the lines like, "No, you're the trickster."
Yeah, and it's so pathetic, and he even willingly goes into the mind wipe machine because he's so hurt. And it's like, Jesus Christ, is this Wolverine or Colin Firth?
Or Jim Carrey in Eternal Sunshine.
Oh yeah, shit, it was, yeah.
And but yeah, also there's a scene a bit before this where Cornelius is like, Stryker, we gathered the leftover adamantium and we made these.
We made bullets.
We made bullets out of it, and they might. Our statistical analysis says that it might actually destroy his memories. It won't kill him, but they'll destroy his memories. But we have a better way to do this, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's such a weird moment. They have the method to wipe his memory, but they do the scene with the gun, and it's so badly done.
But okay, what happens is that Logan decides he's going to get his memory strapped by the mind wipe machine, which just seems like an electric chair.
Yeah, it's actually described as just like an electric chair.
And it is pretty awesome when he's getting shocked. Like, is that the best you can do? Although they kind of ripped that off in Sin City.
Oh, yeah, exactly, yeah.
With Mickey Rourke. And that's kind of awesome. And then Silver Fox notices that Hines is turned over to Sabretooth to be killed and probably raped in the process.
Oh, and we should mention as well that in the film, at least with Silver Fox, she has the excuse that they had her sister. Here, she has no excuse.
Well, her excuse here is that they let her out of prison.
Yeah, but it's really flimsy, let's be honest.
I don't know. I think both of them don't work. At least this doesn't lead to a stupid Emma Frost cameo.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I should mention, no Cyclops in this script.
Hooray!
No mutant children for Wolverine to save.
Hooray! And no hideous Patrick Stewart mannequin with his skin stretched over it. Like some horror from Silent Hill.
Yes, he does. He looks like a grey alien.
It does. It's just freaky as hell. It doesn't work.
Like, people gave Tron Legacy crap for that aging effect. Yeah. It is a masterpiece compared to Patrick Stewart at the end.
Good God.
Yeah, so, okay, yeah. But yeah, basically what happens is that Silver Fox has a crisis of conscience and then decides to get Wolverine out of the machine so he can stop Sabretooth. And then they have a fight scene. They end up in the cavern with the 11s, and then I thought they were going to fight together against the 11s. No, Wolverine chops his goddamn head off.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sabretooth dies in this script. I don't think that Wolverine or Sabretooth can come back from a beheading.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Deadpool can, but he's a comedy character.
Yeah, again, it doesn't really matter with Deadpool. He can do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
He has control of the script, let's be honest.
So here it's like, Beanie off. Definitely did not see X-Men 1 because Sabretooth is just...
I mean, the only way they could get away with it is to say that Sabretooth in the first one is one of the 11s.
Yeah. God damn, that's actually kind of brilliant. So Stryker goes absolutely insane, decides to turn on the 11s, and then they... there was a very, very brief reference of his son, which is even more token than it was in the movie.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
And then he turns on the 11s, and there's a tiny bit of a fight scene with Wolverine, and then he just collapses the cave on them, and they're dead. Nothing happens.
Yeah, and it actually specifically says that even if they're alive, they won't be able to dig themselves out of it.
Which, they have adamantium claws.
Yeah, again, I'm pretty sure Wolverine can get out of that, so they can get out of that.
Yeah. And then, okay, so Kayla and Wolverine, they get out. Hines is already fucked off.
Yeah, she just disappears.
Yeah. And so, poor Cornelius probably died. He wasn't such a bad dude.
Yeah, again, disappears.
Yeah. And the whole base, by the way, the whole base collapses in on itself. And so Kayla and Wolverine, they get up, they're like, yay, we made it, sunlight. Then, bam, adamantium bullets.
Yeah, and it's just like the way they did it in the film. It's like, oh, we're going to walk off into the sunset. No, we're going to shoot you in the head.
Yeah, shoots him in the head. She does the same thing to Stryker, where she says, walk till your feet bleed.
Which makes more sense now that he's not on a fucking island.
Yeah, and then she scrawls a note on a piece of paper with blood, and then she leaves the paper and then walks off into the lake.
Yeah,
so
I didn't understand that.
That's the second love of Wolverine's life, who has ended up at the bottom of it. I wonder if, like, when Jean Grey was in her psychic cocoon, if, like, Kayla's skeleton floated by, and they were like,
just
hey!
by. It's like, oh, hey, I remember you.
Yeah, we both like that smelly, hairy guy for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, I turned him down for a blind man, you know that? But no, she walks off into, like, he wakes up and found his memories, and he unfolds a note, and what should have happened is that he unfolds it, and it's just a red blur. He's like, well, I don't know what the fuck's up with that, and then walks off.
Yeah.
But no, it says, you are my Wolverine. Because,
Yeah. Going back to the bullets, though, one of the things that didn't make sense is that they're supposed to be adamantium bullets, but they're also explosive.
Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
That makes a little bit more sense than just shooting him in the head with adamantium bullets.
It does, but how does adamantium break in an explosion?
I don't know.
It doesn't.
How does it break when a superheated sword cuts into it?
Well, yeah, but we're going to talk about how stupid that is as well.
Yeah.
But also, I can't remember if that really cringeworthy line is in the script, but in the movie, the line is, his brain may heal, but his memories won't.
No, they don't say that. They say, our statistical analyses say the synapses that have his memories or something will grow back, but won't be the same or something like that.
Yeah, it's far less cheesy.
Oh, and I should notice they get the adamantium bullets in the script later, so it's not like, wait, you give it to Agent Zero.
Yeah, because he gets them pretty much the exact same moment he's left. He just leaves and then gets the bullets.
It's like, Zero, if you would have waited a few more minutes, you would have had them.
Yeah, I don't really know why.
And so, yeah, that was X-Men Origins Wolverine, or Wolverine as the script is called. It's not as bad as the movie.
But it's not as noteworthy either.
It's not as good as it should be.
No. There's just nothing, there's nothing about it.
And
nothing at all.
And you can see where the story went wrong from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And honestly, even if you took just sort of the basic structure of this, you could rewrite it into something at least decent.
Yeah, I do think it feels a lot like the bare bones of a script, because a lot of the detail has been removed. And a lot of that detail was filled in the movie. It's not the right kind of detail, but that's what it feels like. It feels like very much like an expanded treatment that needed more detail.
And it's a pretty short script. It's only like 100 pages.
Yeah, I was surprised at how short it was, actually.
And yeah, it's just not that good. Could have used a rewrite. Unfortunately, with the rewrites, they got Skip Woods, the guy who wrote both Hitman movies and Die Hard 5, and The A-Team, which I didn't.
Oh yeah, that was kind of mixed.
Yeah, and he also wrote Sabotage, which that was the Arnold movie where he's the leader of the A-Team.
Yeah.
It wasn't as terrible as its reputation was, but it wasn't that great.
Mm.
Yeah, so they brought him in, and they poured in a shitload of more mutants.
Yeah.
And the movie, it's the only movie I've heard of that had 3 different end credit scenes.
Yeah, it really did.
Because
they had
the Strike one, which was on every print.
Yeah.
There was the Deadpool one where you see Weapon 11 pick up its head and go, shh.
Yeah, because he had to his mouth.
Yes, because it set up for a spin-off that technically didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because it's not that Deadpool in the Deadpool movie, guys. Trust us.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not, because it's a different origin. Again, because it's Deadpool, I think anything goes anyway. And the fact that he has an action figure of himself kind of proves that it does exist in that universe in some form.
It's the urban legend.
Well, actually, when you think about it, considering he has an action figure of his Deadpool version in Origins, that would make that Wolverine's X-Men Origins Wolverine was a film in the Deadpool universe.
Yes, that's
which
really
is bizarre.
Weird. It was a filmmaker's interpretation of the X-Men in real life.
Yeah. Why there's such differences with the X-Men and like Colossus and shit.
Yes, and then there was a third one, which I don't think it ever made it to the home video release. It was only ever shown in theaters, where it's supposed to be setting up for the Japan story, where it's Wolverine sitting in a bar with a Japanese bartender, and basically it's what he's saying. He's taking shots, and she says something about how people drink to forget. He goes like, "I drink to remember," and it's really crappy because it's shot entirely in close-up. Close-up of drinks being poured, close-up of bartender, close-up of Wolverine.
But you see, you didn't watch long enough, because at the end, McAvoy and Fassbender come in, and he tells them to go fuck themselves. It's perfect!
But yeah, that doesn't really lead into the Japan story with Wolverine.
No. I honestly haven't seen that.
Yeah, because it was only in theaters. I found it on YouTube last night, and the Japanese was subtitled in Spanish.
But yeah, it's not really a connection to the Wolverine in any way.
Just like the Deadpool thing is not a tie-in to the Deadpool in any way.
No.
So basically, even without Days of Future Past, this movie would have been retconned in some fashion.
Yeah, definitely.
It would have been like the black sheep that nobody talks about.
Yeah, and it's... I don't know, really, because I'm talking about the Wolverine now. I don't know... we've already mentioned the references to the... I always felt that the Wolverine in itself was more a sequel to X-Men than anything else.
It's a sequel to The Last Stand because it's about Wolverine after that.
Yeah, it's directly The Last Stand, but I think it's also more of a sequel to the X-Men version of Wolverine.
Yes.
And that's kind of where they're basing the character from, and anything that's established in Origins doesn't matter because he loses his memory anyway.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
So yeah, moving on to this one, basically, is that they decided later on they were going to start working on adapting the Wolverine solo series, the Japanese saga, to film, which is what Hugh Jackman wanted to do from the beginning.
Yeah, and it does actually feel like a production that wanted to make a good product and not just something to make money.
Yes, because the film that came out originally, it was supposed to be Darren Aronofsky directing.
Which would have been interesting.
Yes, I still want to see him make his superhero movie because he was supposed to do Batman. That fell through.
Yeah. Has he done superhero stuff before?
Not really.
No?
I mean, he did The Fountain with Hugh Jackman.
Oh,
if that counts.
I don't think so.
Does Requiem for a Dream count?
Unless that's some bizarre origin for the Joker, I don't think so.
or The Wrestler, which is an origin for Bane.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But no, but he signed on to it, and they were getting ready to work on it, and then he decided he didn't want to be in Japan for a long time away from his family, so he pulled out, and then they decided, okay, we're going to rework the script, and Hugh Jackman went off, he filmed Les Miserables. came back and they started work on the Wolverine with James Mangold, who had worked with Hugh Jackman before on Kate and Leopold.
Oh,
which
really?
I haven't seen that. That's how we knew Liev Schreiber as well.
Yes, a friend of mine has constantly been telling me to watch that because of so many connections to the Wolverine stuff. But yeah, I didn't know it was the same director as well. That makes it more interesting to watch.
But the director also did some really interesting stuff before that. He did Copland with Sylvester Stallone, which is a really solid drama. He did this movie called Identity, which is this...
That's kind of a shitty John Cusack thing, isn't it?
It's John Cusack, but I remember liking it.
Nah, from what I remember... I mean, I haven't seen it in years, so I might change my opinion, but when I saw it, I didn't like it.
But
so.
I remember enjoying it. He did Walk the Line, which I haven't seen.
That's The Rock.
No, it's Joaquin Phoenix playing Johnny Cash. You're thinking of Walking Tall.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah.
Which has sequels starring Kevin Sorbo.
Oh, fuck me. That was a bit of a fuck up.
I'm leaving that one in.
That was a massive fuck up. Jesus. It's 12 o'clock here. Give me a break.
That's gonna be the intro to the episode.
Oh.
But he also did 3:10 to Yuma with Christian Bale.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that. That's Hugh Jackman as well, isn't it?
No, it's Russell Crowe.
Oh, that's another fuck up on my part.
You can't tell the difference between New Zealand and Australia now.
But you have to admit, Russell Crowe and Hugh Jackman, they're kind of similar.
Kinda. But no, so they got together and they filmed it. And the movie, I think, is a really strong character piece. And I like how it's about how he's not sure of himself after having to kill Jean Grey at the end of X-Men 3.
Yeah.
And so he's in this weird sort of place where the X-Men have disbanded.
Yeah, and he's like vowed not to kill.
He's vowed not to kill. And it's all about sort of him accepting his real nature and sort of learning about himself by being, adrift in this foreign culture.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting movie.
It's not true, but I would love to say it's basically a more violent Lost in Translation.
What I compare it to is like those noir films with these super complicated plots with a million things going on.
Yeah, it does have a sort of noir kind of vein running through it.
Yes, it's sort of like The Big Lebowski with Wolverine as the dude.
Yes.
Exactly, only it's more coherent than that movie.
It is. It's not Coen Brothers ridiculous.
No, it's not. It would be awesome if it was.
Yeah.
The Coen Brothers Wolverine movie.
Just Wolverine shouting, "This is what happens when you find a guy in the Alps!"
No, Shingen, we know this is your homework, Shingen.
Yeah.
And what Yukio is Julianne Moore's character.
Oh, God.
The word itself makes some men uncomfortable. Vagina. Yeah. Okay, we could go on forever about The Big Lebowski, but what this script is it's the early draft of the film.
Yeah, it is. Feels like part of the same script.
Yes, it does. And it was written by Christopher McQuarrie, who's done collaborations with Bryan Singer before, most notably the Usual Suspects, which explains how complex the script can get.
Yes, it is a very complex script.
He also wrote Valkyrie with him and Jack the Giant Slayer. And he's done other stuff on his own.
Bryan Singer connected to the Wolverine in any way?
No, but I think he was producing it.
Ah, okay.
Because I think this was when he was finally getting back involved, because he was a producer and he has a story credit on First Class.
Yes.
So I think this was kicking off right as he was getting back into it.
Right, okay.
And this version, it was written as a much more standalone piece. It wasn't attempting to really tie in with anything, with the idea being that Logan is the only mutant in it.
Yes, and there's no reference to, there's no, Jean Grey hallucination.
No, it's not. In fact, I believe it's meant to take place before X-Men 1.
Huh.
Which, it doesn't really match up with either of those movies because of that, but
no,
it's not as blatant about it as the last script was, where it's just like, fuck you, we're not keeping anything from the continuity here.
Yeah, in this, it's all kept ambiguous, and it doesn't really stray from that ambiguity.
Yes, and what the storyline is here is that Logan is, living out in the wilderness in Canada, and he gets approached by this older man called Zen, who says that his master, he knew you before, and he wants you to come to Japan to honor the gift you have been given. And the incentive he gives to Wolverine is that he has this file that supposedly has all the details of his past in it. And I'm like,
and everyone says, "You don't want to know!"
Yeah, you don't want to open that tin box, man. It's going to have a DVD of Origins in it.
Yeah, and And Ryan Reynolds making fun of you for 10 years.
Yes, and wearing your face under his mask. No,
Yes.
you don't want to know, man. Your past isn't worth knowing. At the end of X-Men 2, when you said some things are best left forgotten, you were right.
You were right. Move on.
But so they go to Japan, and it turns out that Master Yashida has died recently. And it's introduced, there's this complex web of conspiracy and backstabbing involving Shingen, his Yashida's son Shingen, the daughter Mariko. You have the Silver Samurai.
Who's actually the Silver Samurai?
Yes, who actually, with no explanation whatsoever.
Actually. No.
We'll talk about that later. You have the Minister of Justice Noburo and his mysterious secretary we don't know much about.
Yeah, she's just there. Doesn't really have much of a point.
And meanwhile, lurking in the background is a mysterious ninja group known as the Black Clan.
Well, the script starts off with a massive history of the Black Clan, doesn't it?
Yes, and I'm like, okay, that's a weird way to start off a movie.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. That's why it kind of felt like this is a Japanese movie with Wolverine in it.
Which makes sense, because he's the stranger in a strange land, so to speak.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense, but I did feel like it was just a bit too much.
It went on a little long.
It did. It went on a bit too long, and there just wasn't enough history of Wolverine. And any kind of history is just done with quite quickly.
And it gets explained to him later on, so you don't really need the opening.
Yeah, exactly. It's that opening. It's that classic kind of opening where they explain it all to the audience.
Hello, my name is Alice.
Exactly. It's exactly the same kind of crap as that.
But
and I've had enough of that.
I liked how the opening with Wolverine in Canada, it's similar to the movie, but it's a little bit closer to the comic.
Yeah, well, I think, because I noticed this as well, because I was watching the film and reading the script at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, it's the same setup. He's like this mountain man in Canada. But in the script, he's much more brutal, because he's been actually almost contracted to find this crazed bear. Whereas in the film, he's this mountain man who doesn't want to kill. He's friends with this bear, it's implied. Yeah. And then the bear is hunted and he's forced to kill it. Which I think was definitely a studio decision to make Wolverine more of a good guy.
And also this one, the script's a little more clear that the bear killed a few people.
Well, it's clear in the film as well.
It's mentioned in the film, but it's not as underscored as it is here.
No, I think when he actually kills the bear, he doesn't know it's killed. Definitely.
Yeah, and the scene where he goes and hunts the bear and finds it in its cave, that's comic. Only in the comic, in his narration boxes, he says it killed like 9 people or something, including a few children. And him tracking the hunter to the bar via the arrow, that's all from the comic. And what I like about you don't actually see the fight in the comic, but in the script, it's like he has this big brawl with them in the bar. I'm like, I wish that was in the movie.
Yeah, but I kind of like the really badass moment with is it still Yukio?
Yeah, it's still Yukio.
Yeah, I like it because she shows up and she says, "This sword has a name. It's called the Separate." And it's like, that's really fucked up.
That being said, I do like the bit where he stabs the guy in the hand with the poison arrow and then pours whiskey on it.
Yes.
And in the script, the guy he beats up is referred to as the Meaty Canuck.
Yeah, I laughed at that.
Like, that's kind of racist, but it's funny. And he gets into a fight, and he gets arrested, and there's this funny bit where he comes to in the jail, and they're all those guys are in one holding cell. He's in a separate holding cell, chained down.
Yeah, he's like fucking Lecter. It's ridiculous. And of course, when he's released, he just stands up, and all the chains just off.
And that's where Zen comes to get him in the script, unlike Yukio, who finds him in the bar.
Yeah, instead of him leaving without really a fight, he's released from prison because these guys are really powerful Japanese businessmen.
Yep. Something. And this is one inconsistency I have to point out, is that they say as part of the deal he can never come back to Canada again. So if this is a prequel,
it doesn't make any sense.
Why is he in Canada doing Fight Club shit?
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't hit him in the balls.
I thought you said anything goes. Anything goes, but he'll take it personal. I love that line.
That movie's great. That whole opening is. And so he goes to Japan, and one thing that's missing here it's weird because it's in both Origins and the Wolverine where he doesn't like flying.
Yeah.
And it's only weird. In those 2 movies. It's not in the X-Men movies at all.
No, it's not. And it's not even in Days of Future Past.
No, he's just...
Because he's on a plane and he's fine.
Yeah, he's going to pick all that shit up.
Yeah. So it doesn't really make much sense. Mainly because if he fell out of a plane, I think he would be fine. Mainly because in X-Men Origins, he did fall out of a plane.
And he swam.
Somehow. Yeah.
In Days of Future Past, he can't swim.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always thought that was because he was, like, weighed down with all that metal.
Yeah, but
then again...
he would be weighed down by his skeleton anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense, actually, come to think of it.
So, yeah. Strike 500 against Origins.
But yeah, the whole flying thing, I don't get it. It doesn't make much sense. Yeah. Especially because this guy's been in numerous wars and must have been on many, many planes in worse conditions than the private planes he's in now.
Yeah, and okay, so he gets to Japan and he's given this really, really nice penthouse suite. And for some reason in the suite, his katana is just in the hotel room.
Yeah, I don't know why that was there.
Yeah, I guess it was part of, Yashida's big game plan he has in this script, which is...
really complicated, and I didn't quite follow it.
Yeah, this is one of those really complicated backstabby plots.
Yeah, it's like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, basically, in Japan, and with less, rape and castration.
And incest.
Yeah, no incest here.
The sword doesn't really play much of a part either. I mean, it has a little bit of history, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's not as big of a deal as is in the movie, but what it does is that it triggers sort of the fragmentary memory of him. He runs into Yashida on the battlefield and then spares his life.
Yeah, because they face off and fight.
They have a big sword fight.
But it's not like Logan wins. The guy just sees that every time he hits him, he heals instantly and gives up, which is kind of disappointing. And I really like the whole stuff with the bomb falling on Nagasaki.
Yeah, and Logan surviving the nuke.
Yeah, and all that stuff was far more interesting in the movie.
Yeah,
all that history is definitely one of the highlights of that movie.
Yeah, that was just a cool scene. They're down in that well together for like however long it is. Yeah, it does make me wonder. It does make me wonder if we are including X-Men Origins, where the hell is Victor during this?
Yeah, because he would probably have joined him in the war.
Yeah,
because they were at D-Day together.
Yep, and I do like the mention that Logan was in the Canadian military during this battle, which I thought was a nice touch. It remembers that he's Canadian.
Yeah, which come to think of it, if he was Canadian, then he would have not been at Utah or Omaha. He would have been on Gold Beach.
Gold, Juno, or Sword.
Well, Juno, probably.
Yeah, whichever. I forget which one the Canadians were at.
Yeah, I think it would be Juno, which makes it odd, because, I don't know.
Maybe he's a mercenary who works for different armies, I don't
know. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, let's be honest.
Yeah, and one thing that this script does throughout is that he'll have these dream sequences, which harken back to the whole Weapon X thing, and once again, they're much, much better than anything in Origins.
Yeah. It's true.
And they're described as being really freaky and dreamlike, and I can see that being something Aronofsky would go to town with.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been like you said, Requiem for a Dream fucked up. You know?
Black Swan.
Yeah.
Hell, even Noah.
I would have really liked to have seen something really fucked up he would do for that.
Yeah. See that? Yeah, it would be pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
And he had worked with Hugh Jackman before, so they had a decent relationship.
Exactly. I think that would have worked really well. That would have been really interesting.
He was the guy who said, you know what look you need, Hugh? Shave your head.
Yeah. Because they could have gone, like, really dark, psychological imagery with that. You know, instead of the pretty shit stuff in Origins, they could have done something really, really fucked up and made it stand out as a darker story.
Yep. And, okay, so next morning, he wakes up and he drops this green pearl, which was placed on him sometime during the night, which that becomes significant way later.
Way later, and it's not even that significant. It's literally just to say, yeah, this is going to happen.
Yeah, it basically what it means is that the Black Clan has marked him for whatever.
Yeah, but it's made like such a big deal of because it happens twice.
Yeah.
But it's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah, really,
it's basically a fancy business card.
Yeah. And now I'm imagining Patrick Bateman getting one of those and being jealous, and then he just kills all of the Black Clan.
Yeah.
But so they go to Yashida's funeral, because at this point in the script, Wolverine doesn't know that he's dead. Because Zen is being all mysterious.
Yeah, it's something like he didn't say he was alive, so that makes it better.
And so they're at the funeral, and it does this thing where it specifically points out all the different people who are there, and I like how the script says, pay attention to these people, because these are everyone who is important.
Yeah, and it did stuff like, remember this will be important later. It was like one of my fucking scripts. You know, and much like the Origins thing as well, is that it really did speed up as well, because there's no downtime. When he gets to Japan, he goes straight to the funeral pretty much.
Yeah, he doesn't meet Yashida or anything. You know, there's no really, really cool hospital bed that's like those things you put the pins on, that has the pins in, and you stick your hand in, and it shapes as your hand.
I saw that the other day, and I was like, holy shit, that guy's lying on the X-Men's map.
He is.
That's all I could see from that.
All I could see from it is those toys where you put your hands under it and the pins form the shape of your hand.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no downtime and there's no time to really get a handle on the situation, which it's possibly the intent, because we're supposed to feel as foreign as Logan does.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it feels a bit rushed.
But yeah, but I do like it. I do like how he gets there and they just quickly set up everybody, and it's something that watching the movie, it would be very subtle that attentive viewers would pick up on it before the things that are important are spelled out.
It did seem like it was a lot of gripped notes for like cameramen to pause slightly on certain characters, or for the direction to pay attention to certain details. It was a lot more to do with the cinematography than any kind of actual, narrative, which I thought was standout.
Yes, I thought it was. I thought it was pretty cool, just because I like that they're setting things up and doing it relatively smartly.
Yeah, because with this kind of confusing script, you need that.
Because the people they set up it's Shingen, who is Yashida's son, Shingen's daughter Mariko, who ends up being Logan's love interest for the script, and they way overplay that, I think.
Yes.
And there's Noburo Mori, who's the Minister of Justice, and his mysterious Caucasian secretary.
He's also fiancé to Mariko, isn't he?
Yep.
That's right.
And he's the guy who goes out the fucking window in the movie.
Yes.
And also, outside, there's the guy they won't let in, who is Kenuichio, who is specifically pointed out to be a resemblance, to resemble Yashida.
Which I'm not too sure how they would do that in casting.
No, I don't know. It's probably just something for the scripts that they know to set up the hint. And that pays off later. And it's still done relatively subtly, because Wolverine mentions that he knew he was a Yashida by smell.
Yes.
Which I thought that was cool. This script never forgets that he has the sense of smell.
Yeah. It's a lot more of a subtle reveal, because in the film it's just, bang, I'm your son. And it's kind of, it's not subtle at all.
Well, Harada in the movie is a completely different character. But...
Yeah, again, because he's not the Silver Samurai, he's just part of the ninjas and all this stuff. But it's really weird, because he's like set up to be the good guy, then he's the bad guy, then he comes back as the good guy, and then he dies.
Oh, in this script?
No, in the film, I mean.
Oh, in the movie you don't really know what's up with him.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place.
This script kind of does the same thing, where it's like maybe he's a bad guy, then later on he had good intentions and you find out he was really evil all along.
Yeah, it's just, again, it adds to the confusion.
So at the funeral, it gets attacked by Yakuza henchmen who are apparently there to kill Shingen. Which
is pretty much the same way it went in the film.
Except in the film it turns out a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so Logan, he gets told, okay, go protect Mariko, and Yukio is there as like
yeah, she really doesn't have much to do for the first half of the script.
She doesn't have that much to do in the script.
Well, she comes back later on.
Yeah, but she's not as interesting as she is in the final movie.
No, she doesn't have anywhere near as much to do as she does in the film, because in the film she basically takes over from Zen.
Yeah, she takes over from Zen and she becomes Logan's sidekick.
Yeah, and bodyguard. Which
they do the bodyguard thing here, but it doesn't.
Yeah, and it gets weird.
Oh yeah, it gets weird because that was in the comic too. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But okay, so he grabs Mariko, runs out into the alley, and gets attacked by the Silver Samurai.
And he just appears as well.
Yeah.
There's no entrance whatsoever.
Yeah, and so they have a fight scene, and here's the thing with the Silver Samurai in this script. he still feels out of place here, even though he is the actual Silver Samurai, because he's never really explained.
No.
Like, they say, like it's shown that he has, the adamantium blade, the adamantium armor, and that he energizes it. But it's never explained how he has any of that or can do that, because it's not explained that he's a mutant here.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a mutant, but that's never really mentioned. It's implied more that it's a technological suit. Because it has, like, buttons and gadgets and stuff. Which, again, is like the suit in the comic. But he's also a mutant in the comics, which it's just not very well explained.
Yes. And it's also sort of like the movie where the samurai's a giant mech.
Kind of, yeah.
A little bit.
I think it was more of a realistic-looking samurai in a technological suit.
Yes, which is what it should have been in the movie.
I should say as well, is it really wise to wear really shiny armor on the battlefield?
No, you'll be the biggest target around.
It's a bit weird. That's what. Yeah, I don't see the purpose of it being silver. Is my point.
Maybe it's a traditional thing. I don't know. Because I know in the movie it's explained that the silver look comes from Yashida history.
But I always thought in the film it was like more ceremonial.
Yeah, I don't really. Yeah, it was probably ceremonial because the armor you see them fighting in is the black samurai sort of.
Yeah.
And so that happens, and they escape into the sewer that the Silver Samurai can't fit in.
Yeah, there's a whole scene of him just hacking up the concrete.
Yes, and they get away, and they end up holing up in Logan's penthouse, where they have this weird chemistry where they're kind of into each other, but kind of not.
Yeah, it's weird
it's
because...
implied that they have sex, but then it's said that they don't.
Yeah, and it's implied that Logan knows her from his past, but not really.
Yeah, because he has a memory of a woman that could be her, but he knows it isn't.
And it's just really nonsensical.
And
there's not much explained. No, there's not much explained here.
And she's walking along a lakeshore, so X-Men Origins connection?
Maybe.
I am your illegible red pill. But
yes.
It's implied that they're in that room together for like a week.
Yeah, a really long time.
Yeah, this part was really weird and didn't really work for me, but I like the idea that she's trying to teach him in various cultural Japanese things, but he's not really into any of them. Like, he just does not do the chopsticks very well.
Yeah, she tries to teach him chopsticks, chastises him when he uses his hands, so he just uses his claws. And she's like, alright, fuck it.
That was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, and it was very similar to the scene in the film, but in the film it makes more sense because they're hiding out in her house.
Yes.
Whereas here, it's a single penthouse that's not that big. And you would have thought, where's room service? They're going to need to change the bedding, at least after the supposed sex, not sex.
Yes, and in this I just don't buy the relationship because it basically just feels like they really want to bang, whereas in the movie, they spend a lot of time together and they learn stuff from each other. Mm. And so it feels like there's a real sort of relationship forming. Here it's just kind of there.
Yeah, well, basically it kind of felt like the scriptwriter going, these two people are in love, believe it. And that was it.
And I'll say I do think it works better than it does in the comic.
Mm.
Because in the comic, they're just together at the beginning.
Mm.
And it's like there's no setup for their relationship, so I don't really know what their deal is.
Yeah.
And eventually she sort of hoodwinks him and leaves, so she goes and hides out somewhere. It's not specified.
Yeah, she just disappears for a portion of the script.
Yes. And then Zen shows up, and he basically refuses to tell Wolverine anything.
Yeah, saying he's dedicated to his dead master and all this stuff. But it honestly feels like it's just there to extend the movie.
Yes, and also while she's there, they find another green pearl.
Yeah, again.
Which means
it's given the same kind of gravitas.
Which it means that he's a target of the Black Clan, and basically the only way he can get out of it is by killing someone and then maybe becoming their leader.
Yeah.
So you kind of know where this is going. Oh, and there's a bit when Zen shows up where this is where Logan says that he recognized that Kenuichio, I always screw up this guy's name.
Yeah.
He said he knew by smell he was a Yashida. And here's where it's first implied, where it's subtle and you won't pick up on unless you're paying attention, that Wolverine also knows he was the guy in the samurai armor. And I'm like, okay, that's really cleverly written.
There were moments of that made it at least better than the origin.
And I will say, I think this is a good script on the whole.
I would have to disagree.
Oh, okay. Well, let's wait until we get into this a little bit more, because there are weak spots in it. It kind of hits a brick wall towards the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
It picks up significantly after that. And so, because, he knows that it was Yakuza who attacked the funeral, he decides to barge in on a Yakuza meeting that's at a sumo arena, where apparently they're hanging out in like the locker room at the place, and like everyone else in the script has a mountaintop lair.
Yeah, it's so understated, and it's like small time nothing.
Yeah, it's so weird. And so he gets there, and there's a guy there whom I liked, he is called the Japanese equivalent of Frank Sinatra, and he's just called Sinatra.
Yeah,
I'm like, this guy is awesome. I wish he was in this more.
Yeah, and he's just, I just found it funny that they just adopted his name as Sinatra throughout the entire thing.
Yes, and what Logan says when he's there is that, he's heard that the Yakuza, they attacked the funeral because Noburo was cracking down on crime, and then you find out that the crackdown's just for show and that he's really corrupt.
Yeah, and then the actual Yakuza guys were going against higher up Yakuza orders.
Yes, that they did get the job offer, but that they turned it down. And then these 6 guys went against orders, and so they said, we're thankful for you for killing these guys, so Wolverine has an in with the Yakuza now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how the Yakuza are the less deceitful, horrible people.
Yes, compared to just business people.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure has got to be some kind of allegory there.
Yeah, an allegory for Japanese business.
Possibly.
Like Blade Runner. and then this is where the script sort of starts to lose me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because Logan, he breaks into Noburo's fastness and tortures him, and it turns out that Shingen is also corrupt and in with the Yakuza. And
then there's this whole scene of him going to the crates.
Wait, before that though, he gets attacked by the secretary, who turns out to be Viper.
That's right, yeah.
Who in this, she's not a snake person, she just really knows her poisons. Which is her from the comic. Yeah.
The film kind of expanded on that in a ridiculous manner.
Yeah, and what the script and the film don't mention is that she's also known as Madam Hydra. So what Noburo is really doing is saying, Hail Hydra. Hail Hydra. Hail Hydra. And so she poisons him, and that actually screws him up for a bit. And I guess that's where the idea for, suppressing his healing came from in the final movie.
Yes.
And he does this ridiculous scene where he steals Noburo's Bentley and then drives it down the mountainside and makes all the cars crash into it and then gets away.
Yes. And that's one thing I wanted to bring up as well about the film. I thought it was quite a stroke of genius to take away his healing capabilities, because you can't really combat a hero who's literally indestructible.
Yep.
So it didn't make him, more. It just made him easier to kill, and I think that it added something that made it a bit more interesting.
Yeah, it did. It added a certain layer of complication to it. Now, of course, his healing wasn't completely taken away, but it was just messed with.
Yeah.
And it did tie into the plot and what was going on. It was just a different part of the plot than what you spend most of the movie on.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to stop. I just need to chip 1 second. I need to turn the light on.
Okay. And from here, of course, Logan is now a fugitive because of what he did. And from here, this is where he goes to the crates and he finds the drugs in the Ashida crates. And so he's trying to prove that Shingen is corrupt so that he can get... Because he's trying to get Noburo to give up on Mariko because Logan's so in love with her now.
Yeah, and it's really not written well.
No, because what this is that it's trying to tie into the comic where he shows up in Japan and she's married this other guy. And he's like, okay, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And so he goes to Shingen's offices making these accusations, and Mariko shows up, and then Shingen does this thing where he pulls a sword off the wall and basically tries to coax out Wolverine's animalistic side to
Isn't it like wooden swords as well?
Yeah, it's wooden swords.
Yeah.
And it's basically trying to get Mariko to see his true nature and whatnot.
Yeah.
And this is a little clumsy because this is a scene from the comic where what he does is that he pulls out wooden swords so that to her it looks like just play fighting. But what he does is that he's actually trying to do it in such a way that he will kill him, but it doesn't work because it's Wolverine.
Yeah.
And then when Wolverine pulls the claws out, that makes his point for him anyway. And in that scene, he's also already drugged.
Yeah.
So he's been hit by like throwing stars and has been drugged, so he's already off his game, and he gets his ass kicked by Shingen.
Yeah, it's kind of a clumsy scene, though.
Yeah, it's a little clumsily inserted.
Yeah, because, again, it doesn't really work character-wise. Because there's this whole thing where he's like, talking to Mariko, and it's trying to sound like that, if you love me speech.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work, because it's fucking Wolverine.
Yeah.
And
it's not set up enough to make it work.
No, it's just really badly ham-fisted in there for no real reason. Just because it's in a comic.
And because Mariko is taken aback by this, she agrees to the wedding to Noburo. And that all goes through, and then he has a tendency to beat on her and stuff. That we learn later, but we might as well say that. Very stereotypical.
It really is.
And then Shingen decides to get all pissy over the clause in the will from Yashida that had said blah 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 that Wolverine should honor the gift he was given, and he has Viper torture Zen to get the information from him, and he gives him the file. And Shingen looks at the file and he's like, the truth of this man's life is in here, but it's probably sprinkled through with bullshits, and only he will know the difference. So, perfect metaphor for X-Men Origins.
Yeah.
And he also uses sort of the scientific files to figure out what Wolverine's weaknesses are.
Yeah.
And some of those I really didn't buy into.
No, it's weird, because it's like, it kind of sounded like a child play fighting. Like, one child is pretending to be Wolverine, the other one's pretending to be someone else, and he says, no, I can actually kill you because of this and this. That's what it felt like.
Like, if he hits it precisely between the vertebrae, he can chop his head off, or if he hits it precisely in the middle of the elbow, he can chop the elbow off. Now, the poison part, I can buy into.
Yeah.
That he's weak to certain poisons, but this whole idea that, you can get him between the ribs and in the heart, I don't think that would kill Wolverine.
No, again, no. Especially because in things like the game, he gets impaled and nothing.
Oh yeah, in the game, of course. In the game, even his shirt regenerates.
That's true.
Oh, and he ends up the scene of him looking at the paperwork by throwing a penknife across the room and impaling a fly, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, that was very sort of Karate Kid stuff.
And then, this is where Yukio starts showing back up. Wolverine's getting drunk. And then Yukio's coming on to him really hard because it turns out later she's a spy for Shingen and she wants to do this job so she can become an official servant and have a place and whatnot. And this
doesn't work.
And this is all from the comic where she's supposed to kill Wolverine, but then she decides she'd rather fuck him, and it's all really awkward.
And isn't there an attempted sex scene on a train track?
Yes, and that's from the comic.
Christ, that's so weird.
On the bullet train track. Because it adds to the excitement. He's like, you're crazy, woman.
Yeah, and again, I think she would come off worse than Wolverine.
Yes, and this is where the Black Clan finally show up.
Finally.
And interesting bit of trivia. In the comic, the ninjas that come after him, they're assassins hired by Shingen who are part of the Hand.
Ah!
And this is better because they're, the technical term is leaving me, but their method does not involve digging a giant hole for no reason.
Yes, I was going to say, where's the big hole in Tokyo?
Yes, where's the big hole? Where is them with their weird jar with a dead body in it? But so there's this big fight. They knock out Yukio and leave her to the side. And so,
I would say as well, this fight with the Black Clan is nowhere near as interesting as it was in the film.
Oh, it was a cool fight, but here the fight is it's really simple.
It's a very simplistic fight. There's nothing big about it.
Yeah, what I like in the script is that the Black Clan, they're like this shadowy organization, secretly controls Japan's destiny, and how you kind of feel them lurking around the edges of the storyline all the time before they actually show up.
Yeah, I think if there was a lot more cinematography stuff, they could really do that really well.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be said. There just needs to be little moments here and there. Yes,
and what's really cool is when they show up and Wolverine has the fight scene against them, and he does really, really well, but he ends up passing out.
Yeah.
And they leave the white pearl on his chest, which signifies that he is now the candidate for leadership.
Yeah, and this stuff with the pearls, it's like, Christ, don't they know how to talk. It just seemed all overly complicated.
But they're ninjas and mysterious.
Again, because I know all about ninjas and stuff, and they're never portrayed right in films anyway.
Yeah, well, they didn't wear black.
Yeah, they didn't wear black.
But these are Marvel Universe ninjas, and hey, at least they didn't dig a giant hole right next to them.
That is always going to be the defining... Are they bad ninjas? Did they dig a giant hole?
And, they get pulled out of there by the Silver Samurai, this is where it's revealed that he is Kenuichio, if I said that right, and that he reveals that he's Shingen's illegitimate son.
Yeah.
Who's been taken care of but wants to be acknowledged, and he talks really honorably and stuff and says that he only attacked Wolverine because he thought he was killing Mariko.
Which, again, is just bullshit.
Which is bullshit. And which is bullshit because we find out later on that he wants Mariko dead anyways.
Yeah.
Like, literally only a few pages later. And what he does is that he says that, his big ambition is because he has no place, he wants to become the leader of the Black Clan, which makes sense. And that he'll challenge whoever the winner of the setup match is. And then 5 pages later, it turns out he's in cahoots with Viper and that he really wants Mariko dead.
Yeah, and then it turns out that Viper's working for Shingen.
So Kenuichio has been being manipulated the whole time anyways.
Yeah, it's all very kind of... It's like the ending to the third Pirates of the Caribbean. It's that kind of complicated.
Yeah, this is one thing where there was just a few too many complications. If they smoothed it out here and there, this would have been a bit of a stronger script.
Yes, if it was a bit more streamlined, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's really good just because it's a good starting point.
Well, I think the only things that are truly bad about it is that if they'd have just given Wolverine more history and streamlined the complications, and that's pretty much all you'd need to do, in my opinion, because the history stuff I really love.
Yes, it's
all that stuff in Nagasaki.
It's the start of a great script. It's a good script that just needs a little bit more, but I do really like it still. But okay, where the hell is I? Okay, I have Viper, and it's implied that Viper is controlling him somehow through her poisons, and that all ties back to Shingen. And then Shingen, something to do with Yukio. Let me check my notes.
Doesn't he just basically reject her?
Yeah, he rejects her and something, and I think he gives her an assignment or something, and then
from what I remember is that she comes back saying she did what she was supposed to do with Logan. He smacks her around a bit, and then she just says, fuck it. Yeah,
he smacks her around a bit, and then what happens at Logan, he decides to go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Because he goes and questions the Yakuza assassin there was one that didn't die, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
And then he basically tortures him to get him to say who hired him. It turns out it was Zen. And that Zen did it for Shingen, who set up the hit on himself to prove himself as worthy in combat to be a candidate for leader of the Black Clan.
And now people are starting to see how complicated this thing is.
Yes, it is. And I don't mind complicated, but
it can get...
It could be simpler. It could be simpler.
Yeah.
And then he starts to reveal something. It's already been revealed that the Black Clan is currently leaderless because their previous master died not in combat.
Well, isn't it supposed to be Yashida?
Yes, that gets revealed a little bit later.
Right, okay.
And then you have Shingen officially making Yukio a servant of House Yashida after she bullshits a story together to make her look good.
Yeah.
And then he gets visited by the monk who's the current leader of the Black Clan, and they bestow on him the White Pearl, which means that he's going to fight Logan for potential leadership.
Ugh. But yeah, it's all this Pearl stuff. One of the biggest things I find when it comes to the themes of Japan, I find that if a script is bad, there's an overabundance of the word honor.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Disney Mulan does this all the fucking time as well.
That was China.
Yeah, but it's the same kind of principle is what I meant. There's it's just, they use the word honor as a kind of shorthand for just because I say so. You know?
They do use honor here more times than the TNG era Klingons do.
Yes. Which, courage and honor, which is the name of Worf's testicles. And yeah, it's all very standard stuff. There's nothing particularly outside of the box when it comes to the Japanese stuff. In the sense of, the Japanese culture, there's nothing well researched. It's all bare bones, honor, respect, family, and all this stuff. And in that sense, I think the film did it better because it wasn't so much about that. in a way. I mean, it was about the Yoshida family. That's all it needed to be. You know, it just needed to be about the Yoshida stuff. And I think all this stuff with the Black Clan, and like I said, the massive opening backstory where you've got the Red Clan and the Green Clan or whatever clan.
The Rainbow Clan.
Yeah, just too much. It just feels like someone trying way too hard. And it just kind of irritates me. And like I said, it was a bit too much for me.
Yeah, okay, so let me get back to the plot. It basically shows everybody preparing for this. You see Mariko doing her thing, and all these other characters. Oh, and I should mention that the honor thing comes up a lot in the original comic.
Yeah.
Which was written in 1982.
Right, yeah.
Which explains a lot of that. But so they're all preparing, and Logan, he's hiding out with the with the Yakuza, and Yukio and Mariko go to find him. And earlier there was a mention where Logan was going to leave the country, and they say, "Where are you going to go?" Australia. And somewhere Deadpool was reading the script and went, "God damn it, Logan, that's my kind of humor."
No, I'm pretty sure that's Deadpool with his little red crayon, just putting that in there.
Yeah, but now, and then there's a line where it's like, "How did you find me, Yukio?" And he was like, "Where else would you hide on an island full of short people?"
Yeah, there was some really good lines that I kind of wish were in the film as well.
Yes, those were the ones that made me laugh the most.
Yeah,
and then this is where he tells them the reality of what he learned from Zen, and that in the sort of the aftermath of World War II, Yashida, sort of furious with what had happened, he went and found the Black Clan, who was supposed to prevent this kind of thing. He went and found them, challenged them, and became their leader, and he's been the one sort of leading them towards prosperity in the years since. And what happened is that there was a challenger, and it was Shingen, and he was faced with a choice he didn't want to make, either kill his only son or allow a horrible, horrible man to become the leader of the Black Clan, so he took a third way out and killed himself.
Yeah.
And left it.
That was an interesting twist, I have to admit.
Yeah, that was interesting, in that he left it leaderless on purpose, and that he set up Logan to be brought to Japan to be sort of, the cat's paw.
Yeah, that was a lot more interesting than the way they did it in the film, which was, haha, I'm not dead, and now I'm going to become immortal or something.
And now I'm a mech suit, because it's Japan, and we need a mech suit.
Yeah.
And I have a snake.
Oh, God. That last act.
I don't think it's completely terrible. It's just out of place with the rest of it.
It just comes way out of left field, and it's like...
I think what would have made that whole mech suit samurai fight better is if they revealed who it was before the fight happened.
Yeah,
because there was like... what was going on.
Because there's like at least 10 minutes where they're fighting the samurai, and it's the guy who's supposed to be dead, but it's just not revealed. He even decapitates him, and it's not revealed.
Yeah, he gets the big sword away from him, and he goes, "Hey, Bob," and then chops the head off the robot. That was cool. But so yeah, this whole thing is revealed, and then Logan says, "Hey, as long as there's no leader, Japan will have to choose its own destiny." Because he's a big fan of Scorpion King, I guess. And so he says, "Hey, I'm not going to fight. I'm going to sneak out of the country." And so he gets, Sinatra to help him sneak out. But then Kenuichio, the Silver Samurai, steps in and says, "No, fuck you. You're going to fight so I can get my chance." And so he kidnaps Mariko to make Logan follow him along. And so they go to the Yashida fortress where they're going to fight. And it becomes very clear early on that Shingen is really no match for Wolverine, because Wolverine's a fast learner. And also it's set up early on that Viper gives Shingen a poisoned dagger, which has the poisons that Logan is weak to on it. And he keeps it. And he doesn't want to use it, but he keeps it on him just in case.
Right, yeah.
So the Black Clan representatives are there. Silver Samurai is there, who I swear spends a lot of time just heckling from the sidelines.
Yeah, he does nothing. He just watches.
And he finds out that he's been a pawn of some sort for the entire time, but doesn't really give a shit.
No, it doesn't change anything. It just continues.
And then what happened, and there's a bit that's really funny where he goes where Wolverine goes to Shingen, "You know what, this guy's an asshole, how about we just double team him?"
Yeah.
But then they have their fight, and Wolverine is kicking Shingen's ass. And then Shingen goes, "Hey, Kenuichio, if you help me fight Wolverine, you won't be the leader of the Black Clan, but I'll acknowledge you as my son." He goes like, "Okay, but I have to be your only living heir." And he goes like, "Okay, you can kill Mariko." And so then this thing turns to this massive 5-way fight between Logan, Yukio, Shingen, the Silver Samurai, and Mariko gets in on it.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy and kind of difficult to follow as well.
It's a little difficult to follow, but it would have been pretty cool on film.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, it wasn't really established in the script, but at least in the film they established that every character was a good fighter.
Yes.
So that made it better.
And so you have Yukio beating the shit out of Viper.
Yeah.
And then you have the poison dagger, which keeps changing hands. And you got Logan trying to protect Mariko from the Silver Samurai while also, trying to protect himself from Shingen. And eventually what happens with the Silver Samurai is that Logan gets his sword away from him, hits the charged armor with the charged sword, which that knocks him down. And then Silver Samurai makes a really dumb move where he grabs him by the throat and tries to choke him, and Logan, who still has a sword, chops his arm off. But then, while he's distracted, Shingen gets behind him and tries to kill him. And he has him because he gets him wounded, and he has him wounded badly enough that he's on his knees and is about to kill him. And Yukio tries to get him, but then she gets knocked down. And then Mariko, basically what she does is that she picks up the poison dagger and gets Shingen with it and kills him.
Yeah, and it was kind of disappointing as well because they set up all this stuff with, he's got these ingenious ways to kill Wolverine, and none of that really happened. He doesn't really do anything with it.
Yeah, it sort of calls out how bullshit the idea is.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
And then, the Black Clan says, you're going to be our leader. And Logan's like, no, I don't want it. They're like, oh, you don't have a choice. He's like, no, I didn't even kill him. Mariko did. How does this work?
Yeah.
But they're insistent, and I thought what was going to happen is that she was going to become the leader of the Black Clan.
That is what I thought too.
But then what happens is that her and Yukio leave, Wolverine leaves shortly after, and then he says, I was their leader, they had to follow my orders. What did you say? And he goes, Seppu. Which is
pretty badass.
Yes, it's badass, and it cuts back, and they're all laying there dead, so there's intestines lying around.
And of course, the Silver Samurai's in the middle, and he's just sobbing to himself.
Yeah, he's just completely broken, and it's implied he'll go for the poison dagger.
Yeah. Although, there was one pretty badass line from the movie that I thought the script was going to do, but it didn't.
What was that?
Which was when he's fighting... Yeah, he says, what kind of monster are you? And, and that whole... First of all, that whole fight scene's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Because Logan's just getting stabbed every which way, and he just keeps on coming. And then there's that ending line, what kind of monster are you? The Wolverine, straight through the throat. It was brutal and really well done. I love it.
Tried to have you.
Yeah, it's really well done.
And so, but I mean, I just really like that. I forgot to mention that Noburo ends up accidentally drowning because when Yukio and Sinatra, when they went to get Mariko away from him, they kidnapped him as well and put him in the trunk, and Wolverine's like, take him back. And then when the Silver Samurai came to get them, he knocked the car into the water and Noburo drowned.
Wow.
That was pretty funny. And then Logan goes to leave the country because he can't stay because he's a wanted man, but Mariko's like, no, I have to stay. I have responsibilities of the family company.
Which is pretty much the ending of the film.
Only it's not anywhere near as ridiculously melodramatic in the film as it is here, because here it's like, I love you and we can't be together, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we're trying to recreate the end of Casablanca, but really poorly.
Yeah, and in the film, it's there's the implication that he will be coming back from time to time.
Yeah, but the film did it better.
Until she gets killed off the Sentinel
War, which is not too far off. Which I must admit, in the film as well, I did like the fact that it's not only the fact that you see Xavier and Magneto, there's actually an advert for Trask Industries.
Yes, one of those fake commercials they always make for movies.
Yeah, which I thought was pretty clever.
Yeah. And so you get the ending scene where they leave, and then Zen brings, the paperwork, and Logan says, I'm not worthy of this. He said, honored the gift you've been given, and I honored it by killing his son. No, I'm not going to take it. But then it's implied that he reads it and then drops them all in the water.
Yeah, he just reads it, and it doesn't really affect anything.
So, okay. So what's weird about this is that this is a prequel. All this stuff, okay, if he's, got all this, romantic connection with Mariko, why does he immediately try to move in on Jean Grey?
Yeah, especially if this is supposed to take place directly after as well. It's all a bit, it doesn't really work.
And especially, okay, he goes back to Canada where he's not supposed to go.
Yeah, apparently he wasn't allowed to go back there. I'm going back there.
And in X-Men 1 and 2, he was very interested in regaining his memories, whereas at the end of this, he's like, no, I don't deserve it. So yeah, I think it was a better choice to set it after the trilogy.
Yeah, it was definitely a better choice, because then they didn't have to link it to anything else that was coming up. I mean, except for the Days of Future Past, but it doesn't matter.
But that was bad timing.
That was bad timing, and it was an after credits thing anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It felt more like an individual story because it didn't have any kind of origin. It didn't have to stick to any continuity. It was very singular, but in a really good way.
Yeah, it was, and I like that about the script too. That it is very singular.
Yes,
but it's almost too standalone.
Yeah, I mean, I like standalone for the most part. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it does feel like, and I think I said this before, Wolverine is just there, you know, and there's no real reason for him to be there, and it kind of feels like if he wasn't there, someone else would take his place in the story.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know.
I don't know. It depends on how it would be presented in the action.
Yeah. I mean, I can see why they changed it.
Yeah, I can see why they changed it too, but he did have a reason to be there, but it's not as intensely kind of personal as it is in the movie. And what I like about making it sort of a follow-up to The Last Stand is I like seeing how the character has evolved since then and how he continues to evolve. Yes,
I did like all of that stuff and how been affected by it more than any other time as well. Because I think as well, with the ending of The Last Stand, I mean, all jokes aside about the film, for the character, it was probably the biggest tragic moment he's experienced since losing his memory.
Yes, since the adamantium bullets.
Exactly. So it was probably good that they made it so significant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and I like the fact, even though I don't really like the actress, I like the fact that it called back to it in a nice way, and it wasn't overdone, and it was very kind of subtle. They didn't just show clips from The Last Stand.
No, they didn't.
They intercut it with like hallucination and stuff and nightmares. It was very well done.
Yeah, and also it gives it much more weight than even the ending of The Last Stand did, because last time you see Wolverine in The Last Stand, he walks out onto the terrace and there's that ridiculous pull-out thing with the camera, like, and he just has this confused look on his face.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
It's like even he doesn't know why he's there.
And in that movie, he has like zero reason to be as important as he is.
It's true, but again, it's that whole thing about it's got Wolverine in it. You know, Wolverine's so popular that just put him on the cover, and that'll sell books. It's the same thing with movies.
Yes, and I do think it's funny that in the last Jean sort of flashback dream sequence thing in the Wolverine, she's like, "I'm all alone." So it's like, wow, even in death, no one gives a shit about Cyclops.
Yeah.
Poor Cyclops, you had to get time traveled for anyone to care about you.
Yeah, but again, he is a emotional vacuum.
Who is also an asshole, depending on who writes it. So, yeah, I think we covered that pretty thoroughly. Maybe a little too thoroughly.
Possibly.
Well, that last script, you had to really talk about it in detail, because it's like...
Because it's so dense.
Yeah, it was pretty dense. I thought it was so I can say I could sum these up as the first script, not very good. It's generic.
It's very generic, very standard, very boring.
And doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it's no point whatsoever.
And the second script, I like the ambition of it. It just needed some tightening.
Yeah, it's definitely got the fingerprints of what the film became.
It's got a lot of potential. Even this story with the Black Clan that they told here has potential. It just needed to be simplified a little bit.
Simplified and a bit more history with Logan itself.
Yes, there's just a few too many moving pieces. Maybe expand the flashback of him with Yasha.
Yes, exactly. Which is what they did in the film, basically.
Although I'm not really sure how he can remember that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Although I always thought it was kind of implied that for the most part he'd gotten his memories back by The Last Stand.
Yeah, it was implied that he had, but it was never really made explicit because The Last Stand just forgot about that part of the story.
Yeah, it's true.
Because in X2 it's mentioned that Xavier is helping him remember, then in The Last Stand it went, fuck that, let's just have him stand around and change his haircut so he has a stupid cowboy.
Yeah. But again, you could also argue that it was a traumatic moment of him literally getting an atom bomb in the face, so maybe that was also part of it.
Or maybe his memory was just being jogged.
Yeah, so who knows?
Who knows? But yeah, I think Okay, the origin script, better than the movie. Not by much.
Again, I would...
Which is surprising to hear you say that.
I know, I surprised myself, but
I
it's
think
just because it's so generic.
Yeah, and I think the Wolverine script is, in some ways, I think it's more interesting than the movie, but I think the movie is a little bit more cohesive.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's a bit too confusing for me. I don't like all these intricate details that really don't matter in the scheme of things. You know, because all this intrigue just kind of boils down to you fight, winner gets these. It's very simple.
It's a fighting game plot.
Exactly. There's really not. It doesn't need to be as complicated as it is.
Yeah, but I still liked it. It was interesting enough that I'm glad I read it.
Oh yeah. It was still interesting. I mean, even though it kind of dragged on in the middle.
Yeah, it did. The middle was the biggest problem for me when they started inserting scenes from the comic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So streamlining, and then you basically got what the film became, except for the Silver Samurai stuff and the Black. So yeah, but it was an okay thing, and I could see that as a movie for the most part.
And you want to speculate on Wolverine 3?
I honestly don't know. Apparently they're going to go for Old Man Logan.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, but they can't really do Old Man Logan as it was, because Marvel owns most of those characters.
Exactly, so I don't know what they're going to do. And Old Man Logan, I own it.
I haven't read it.
You know, it's kind of the generic sort of... It's Mad Max with Wolverine.
Oh, okay.
You know?
But probably what they'll do is they'll do a loose adaptation of it.
Yeah, possibly.
And so yeah, I haven't read that. I know it's Mark Millar, and he's a mixed bag. He wrote the Wanted comic.
Oh, I fucking hate that comic.
Oh boy, that comic. And,
but didn't he do Kick-Ass?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like Kick-Ass for the most part.
He also wrote the Civil War comic.
Again, I don't mind that as much as most people say.
And he wrote the first 2 volumes of Ultimates, the team book, not the whole universe.
I don't know. I don't think I know enough about the Ultimates really to say.
And so yeah, I don't really know anything about that story. I know it's on a list of like Wolverine trade paperbacks in the comics I have, and there's one which I don't know at all what it's about, but it's called Not Dead Yet, and it's written by Warren Ellis. Oh
yeah, I know that one. I don't know anything about it, unfortunately, but I've seen it referenced because I really like Warren Ellis, and I know it's a thing he did. So yeah, but apparently it's pretty good. It got him pretty much the internet Jesus that he is today.
Oh really? That did?
Well, that was like one of the first few things he did for Marvel, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Because before that, he was doing independent stuff like Lazarus Churchyard.
Oh, okay.
I could be really fucking up the history there, but it sounds right.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I'll look it up later. So yeah, that was Wolverine. And I'll say this, it was an interesting topic for an episode. Yeah. They were enjoyable reads, especially after seeing the films, because you could see the similarities. Yeah, definitely. And it was very interesting. It was interesting to see just... Honestly, it's not so surprising anymore that X-Men continuity is so weird now that we've read these. Yeah, it's true. Sabretooth gets his head chopped off. What the fuck? Oh, yeah, but there's an after credit scene where his hand goes towards his head and he goes, shh. Oh, God. While he's under 1,000,000 tons of rock. Yeah. But yeah. I don't regret reading these, unlike Freddy vs. Jason. Remember, you picked that episode. I know. I kind of regret it. Yeah, none of these were that bad. No. And none of them were as bad as that one draft of I Am Legend. No. Or even as bad as Castlevania. Fuck off, Paul. I think that's the perfect note to leave it on. Fuck off, Paul. Yeah, okay. So, alright, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Remember to check us out on Facebook and Tumblr, and I have a Twitter, but you're not going to get much out of that. If you want, like, substantive stuff, go to Tumblr and Facebook. And, like I said before, check out us on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, and if you're inclined, give us ratings. That will increase the visibility. And, hope you enjoyed the episode, and until next time, whatever that is, bye. Bye.